where's my music gone?
Yeah, you're grooving already, Roger.
I'm grooving away. I'm groovy. Welcome, Earthlings, to another Still Alive, and we can confirm that we are. You're still alive, Ronnie?
I think so, yes.
Good.
Just about, yes.
Yeah, I'm still alive as well, so that's
Very good. We can proceed then.
I suppose we can, yeah. Let's see who we've got in the house. Oh, this is a show, you know, the only show where you get 2 countdowns.
And I know, yes. Make people wait for it. It's worth the wait.
Now, also, don't forget, we really value your comments. And on this show, we will never charge you to speak to us because we don't believe in that. And so chat away in the chat and it will be on the screen. So don't worry about having to pay. So Michael was first. Hi, Michael. That was a while ago. So wanted to get in there first. Elliot Davis, hello there. BC. Kate J, hello. Spiritual Vegan, don't know what that is. Linda Carroll. Now we're getting all those duplications that I don't like. Not your mum, not your milk, or as we say in Ireland, not your ma, not your milk. And Andy, your badges are on the way. So we'll see if the Irish postal system works better than the British one. So that'll be quite interesting.
That wouldn't be too difficult, I don't think.
Well, I had to fill in loads of forms, and I said, "Why have we got to do this?" And she said, "Brexit." And like, I mean, I was just sending some. I think there was about 10 badges or 9 badges and 1 fridge magnet, and I had to fill in bloody forms and everything. It's
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Got vegan Graham, and Graham will be putting some detail of a Zoom meeting that he's got going tomorrow in the chat as we proceed. So look out for that one. Colleen, Canadian Vegan Forever, at least forever. A friendo, hello there. BC again. Right, I think we're up to date. Yeah, so yes, must be quicker than getting the books. Yeah, that's right. So over the past few weeks, we've been going through this Animal Justice Academy list of 50, and so we whittled it down to 10 because I in particular I wanted to have the best 10 in one place, so people can refer people to it. And so really, this is activist ideas which are a little bit outside of what has become the norm, like the cubes and the save and the We the Free, those kind of things. Now, that's not saying that we don't like that. We're just saying that some people think that is activism, and so we're just offering an alternative. And then, in particular, and particularly with Ronnie here, we're interested in providing things that individuals or small groups can do, that you don't have to have 10, 30 people in order to do it, right? So there's that kind of difference, on the grounds that we would ideally want to see vegan activism everywhere and all the time. And so that means that we need to get used to the fact that there's lots of different things we can do, rather than it just being a little list of 3 or 4 things, which in recent times, that's what the movement seems to have become. Do you get that impression, Ronnie? Because I do.
I kind of do, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it's not having a go at that. It's more to do with this isn't, have a think about this as well. That's all, all it is, really. Right, so we've got our list of 10, and we came up with a list separately. They were virtually the same, weren't they, Ronnie?
They kind of were. Well, what happened was I looked at your list and thought, well, I pretty much agree with that, but there was like one thing that I kind of wanted in there that you'd left out, so I kind of jiggled yours around a little bit to fit my thing in. I was going to say, it doesn't sound too good.
No, you jiggled in my list to fit your thing in. Yeah.
Yes.
So
great minds think alike, don't they, as they say?
Yeah, and also us too as well. So then,
yes.
So let's think. So we're gonna try and do this kind of like exciting thing of doing 10 down to 1. So hold on to your hats, people.
Yeah.
I mean, the excitement is going to build, so I don't know how you're going to cope.
Yeah.
So the first one, shall we get on with it instead of?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is this, and yeah. Okay. So this was the 10th one for both of us, right?
It was. I mean, it's quite difficult to kind of, you know, there were some really obvious ones that are like kind of up the top of the list, and then there was quite a lot that were kind of all reasonably okay. So it's quite difficult to, you know, when we got sort of lower to down the list, I think it was more difficult to choose. But I think this really is an important one. I think it is important to support small vegan businesses, really, because at the end of the day, if you're spending your money with a vegan business, when they in turn spend that money, they're going to spend that money on vegan products and vegan services themselves. Where if you spend money in a non-vegan business, then they're going to spend that money you've given them, or certainly, you know, a percentage of it on animal products. So it's kind of you're kind of buying animal products or contributing to the oppression of other animals, kind of one removed, aren't you, if you do that? Whereas you don't do that if you're supporting.
But even then, though, Ronnie, I mean, a place like this is going to be getting their stuff delivered in a van by a non-vegan driver, right? And so,
yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's not about being perfect; it's about doing the best we can. And I think it is doing your bit.
Don't we start in that line? But
yeah,
I mean,
well, it is really, isn't it? Because you're kind of trying
I think this is a dilemma here, because obviously it raises that generation gap between our generation would not go anywhere near Max Scheidt, right? But
no,
but the new generation will, and I think there's not a lot of long-term vegans who would go to that crappy place, you know. But a lot of them do, and of course they're going, well, look, if we can popularize it in a place where everybody's going to go anyway, then that's a good thing. On the other hand, is that people like Macbeth and Murder King and all that, they're the ones that if it doesn't work for them, and they're looking down their numbers and going, oh well, the vegan stuff or the plant-based stuff is starting to, they'll just sling it out, right? Whereas this shop here won't. So that's the reason why we've got to keep them open.
Yeah, and also this shop here, the vegan shop, will close if not enough vegans support it. And indeed that's been happening, you know, especially, and it may be worldwide, but certainly, you know, here in the UK, it's very difficult for all small businesses, not just vegan businesses, but all small businesses have been having a hard time. So it's even more important to support your local small vegan business to keep them going.
You can see the argument for supporting the other stuff as well, can't you? That's the problem.
You see, I think I don't think they'll have a problem, because you see how it works is that as people are educated to become vegan, you'll have people that are going in McDonald's anyway, right? And then they decide that they become vegan, or they become interested in trying food that's vegan, that's plant-based. And so when they go in McDonald's the next time, they'll have the Mac Plant, isn't it, their vegan burger. Or if they go in the Kentucky Fried Chicken, they'll have the vegan nuggets, you see. And so, you know, they've got their customers anyway from those people. And then what you do is those kind of new vegans that are kind of are going in McDonald's, then what we need to do is educate them, you know, to become more ethical and to kind of make a more ethical choice by going in the local vegan cafe, if possible, instead of McDonald's, or indeed into any cafe. Really,
I kind of think myself, I tend to think that that's a natural process, in the same way as a new vegan nowadays is probably going to be a lot of processed plant-based foods. But the more you get into it, the more you start to think, oh well, I'll go back to the fruit and veg, you know, like, so it's kind of like you're not as, I mean, there's a lot of early junk food vegans who then kind of go, oh well, let's increase the fruit and veg again or something, right? And so I think that's the way it works too.
Yeah, I think because I think the educational process kind of continues within veganism. You see, so you know, the people that are kind of vegan but going in McDonald's, then you know, we educate them to not go in McDonald's and to support a more ethical or less unethical business instead.
And then they can start going back in with the quick drying cement, Ronnie.
Yeah, blocking up the toilet. I mean, I've never done that.
Not that we would suggest such a thing.
No, I've never done it myself. I've had a normal wee. And I've gone in and had a wee in the toilet in McDonald's when it was the nearest.
Okay.
Which is called a Mac piss, isn't it? That is. I've not had a Mac shite. Never had one of them.
No. I knew you were going to say that.
That might block the toilet if I had one of them in there.
Okay. Right. Moving on swiftly. Right, I think we've said more than enough on that one, and so so our number 9s are a bit different. So I'm going to go to your one first, which was number 26. So that's your number 9, Ronnie.
Yeah, but but that's one of yours as well, isn't it, Roger?
Yeah, that was my number 8.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think this, you know, this is a good way. I mean, I would say particularly, and it would only really work, I think, if it was a sanctuary for farmed animals, you see, so that they can actually see the type of animals that they're eating, if you see what I mean. And you know, quite a lot of those sanctuaries kind of have information about the animals, you know, in order to educate non-vegans, you know, like sort of where they've got the pigs, they'll have information about pigs, you know, about kind of, you know, what marvelous animals they are, really, and the same with all the others, and that also helps. So I think that's good, you know, to, you know, get them, and then they come face to face with the type of animal that they're eating, and it might make them think a bit, and you know, and hopefully go vegan. And you know,
this is nice. Somebody watched our videos, but not our live stream. So welcome, Lorraine, for your.
Oh, that's good. You know, it's that's great. I mean, obviously, if people watch the live stream, they've got the advantage of commenting, but we all share the videos widely anyway, so that people can watch them who can't see them live.
Well, yes, obviously, I'm going to agree with you about the fact that it's going to need to be a farmed animal sanctuary or a mixed one, because that would make the biggest impact. Of course, there is a caveat that some sanctuaries don't actually allow visitors because they see it as the residents' home and they don't want them to be disturbed, and they can't consent to be disturbed, and so therefore, you know, so yes. I think there's a bit of a difference between the ethos of some sanctuaries. Kind of.
I mean, I went to a sanctuary open day on Sunday. Louise and I went to, it's a place called the Farm Animal Rescue Sanctuary, and it's near Stratford, in kind of.
And you got out without being eaten, Ronnie.
Yeah, sorry.
You got out without being eaten. You're just a snack for some of them, aren't you?
Yeah. What happens is they kind of have guided tours where they'll take a small group of people. You book that, and they take a small group of people around to meet the animals. And at that particular sanctuary, it's mainly sheep, and they do have some pigs and some chickens. And I went on one of those, and like the sheep were like really pleased to see people. They weren't at all. They weren't at all fazed by these humans coming around. They seemed quite happy to kind of interact with the humans, and that might be because it's not all the time. I think if people are going in there all the time, they might get pissed off. But they seem to be quite.
I agree with that. I think it's swings and roundabouts. It's interesting about people attending the autumn festivals. Let's get the terminology right. Fall festivals, fairs, etc., and see the farmed animals, pet them, admire them, talk about how cute they are, and then still don't make the connection. Well, I mean, that's a problem, isn't it? But I mean, there's a sociological answer to that. But yeah, I mean, it does seem extra shitty when people do that, though, doesn't it, Ronnie?
It kind of does, and of course there are these kind of so-called petting farms, aren't they? That aren't there. That in fact, a lot of these places, the animals aren't rescued for a start, and they're not there to make any kind of effort to turn people vegan. That's not the that's not the
No,
kind
I
of
mean, we're talking about a
reason.
completely different thing when we talk about that, aren't we? So,
Yes, yeah.
Going back to the picture, that's actually the door of the Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary, which I always loved that sign, so I took a picture of it, as you can see. Beware of the chickens. So I thought that was brilliant, But there's
good,
there is a lot of signs around saying, please bear in mind, this is the resident's home, and you are the visitor kind of thing, and all that. And so that's pretty good. Okay, so so that seems like a worthwhile thing to do, and it would be advisable then, given the fact that some are restricted compared with others, to check in advance. Obviously, I would think is the thing there.
Yeah, I think maybe an open day when they kind of have an open day, because then the one I went to, they they have vegan food there and everything, and stalls selling stuff. It's like a kind of a really good all-round experience, and it would really be that kind of event that you'd be looking at taking people to.
Okay, so let me just drop back then, or drop forward even to 32, which was going to be my number 29. Where are we? That one there, right a blog post. But we're going to come back to that with something else, aren't we, Ronnie? So
that's right, because I thought it could be combined in with another one. Yeah.
Okay, right. Okie dokie. So then we go back to 28. What's 28? Went past it. Oh, right. Yeah, this is one of yours.
I mean, this was the one you kind of left out, and I wanted it to be in there.
You did.
I mean,
and you're the general, so you always get your own way.
One of the reasons being that the back of my car is covered in stickers, not just on the bumper, but I've got window stickers as well. And a lot of them are promoting veganism. So, I've got an anti-vivisection one. I've got some in support of rescues. And if we have a kind of local a vegan event, or a local event where there's like a vegan presence, where we have a stall, say with our local vegan group, I'll put a poster advertising that on the back. I've got that at the moment for a local sustainability festival where we're going to be doing a few stalls. So yeah, this is a good idea. This is a really good way of like spreading the message, because when you think of how much you'd have to pay for that amount of advertising anywhere, it would be a considerable amount. I mean, the only thing I'd say is it's probably not something everyone could do, because it probably depends on the area where they live or where they would park. There are certainly some places I wouldn't park my car with those stickers on it, or I'd remove the stickers.
Yeah, well, we spoke about that. Yeah, when we first brought that up, and you said that you hadn't had any trouble, though. You said, yeah.
I kind of haven't, because of, I think, because of where I live.
Do you know other people who have?
The only time I know about someone being in trouble because of stickers on their car is a little bit different. Years ago, we did a protest outside of Vivisector's house, and we all went there. We were wearing animal masks, you see, so we couldn't be recognised. We stood outside his house. It was like a silent protest, holding placards, but no one was looking out the window. So I went and knocked on the door. And his wife looked out the window. He wasn't in, but his wife looked out the window and saw it. And we had this idea: if we stand outside his house for about 10 minutes and then kind of leave, we'll kind of be away before the police come. You see, so that was the plan. So that's what we did. But like one of the guys taking part in the demo, his car was parked around the corner, and it was covered in animal rights stickers. You see. So when the police got there, they kind of caught him in his car. He was sat in his car about to go, and they arrested him because of the stickers and took him to the police station.
He was grabbed by the stickers.
He was grabbed by. So yeah, that's it. So eventually they let him go. but that was one of the, that was an instance where the stickers actually led to this guy's arrest. And I think, yeah, there were certainly some areas where I wouldn't park the car, but like around kind of where I live and
it's got
really
to
where I normally go.
be a case by case, hasn't it?
Yeah, where I normally go, it's not.
Yeah.
There aren't any kind of rabid anti-vegans.
I do drive race, but I don't have a vehicle. I do drive the VIP van, Neville, but I don't. And there isn't any stickers on Neville. Well, I think that was, I was thinking in terms of security, but I mean, I used to live in a more dodgy place than I do now, so it'd be better now, except that the back window is actually all black, so you couldn't have those inside ones looking out anyway.
Yeah.
So
And did I stick them there? I'd have to travel some distance.
Yeah, Neville doesn't have stickers. No. Well, I used to have one on the back door underneath the window. Actually, got this kind of, like a ribbon type thing with vegan on it. Yeah, did used to have that at one point. And yeah, not quite sure where that is, but anyway. Okay, so all right, we've done that.
I think there was a comment about who was it who said they had stickers on their rucksack?
That was Michael.
Michael, yeah. I mean, I've got this kind of I've got a kind of shoulder bag. I mean, I used to refer to it as a man bag, but people would laugh at that, so I don't know why. but I it's like a shoulder bag that I wear sometimes, and I've got vegan badges and patches all over that. So any way that you can kind of advertise veganism, I think, is like really good.
Oh yeah, actually, I mean, your point about the man bag in our kind of trans aware times, I'm not sure that man bag would be.
No, a person.
I don't know. That's another kind of interesting question, isn't it?
Yes, it's
kind of thrown a lot of things into the mix, really.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on then down to number 7, I believe, and that is number 13, as we say in Ireland. Let me get down there. Got all these brilliant ideas.
Yes.
We're flying past. Okay, so post a video of yourself. We're kind of doing that now in a way, but I think this is really talk about a one-off here, isn't it?
I think this is I think this would kind of be good where someone's got a lot of non-vegan friends.
Yeah,
it's a sort of a new vegan, and they post a video of themselves, because I think this would be of particular interest to people's friends, because it's the actual person talking. Not a long video, probably try and keep it to no longer than a few minutes, really. But yes, I think this is that would be a good way, good thing to do especially for new vegans, and also it doesn't have to be a video. It could be a post, but I think a video probably has more impact.
Yeah, and of course it could be a Facebook thing rather than anything else, couldn't it? Or
a video, a video on Facebook or a video on kind of
TikTok or Twitter, Instagram.
It could be. The thing about Facebook is it's more likely to be your friends that see it on Facebook, and so they're going to be more interested because, if it's a young person that's doing this, they might still have a lot of their school friends as friends on Facebook. That's if I don't know how many young people kind of use Facebook these days. It tends to be more of an older person's thing, but that's or on Instagram, because like a lot of people's friends might be might follow them on Instagram, perhaps even on TikTok, or maybe one of the other forms of social media more used by young people.
Yeah, I know somebody, right, who I think they used to have quite a lot of kind of cosmetic or kind of those kind of adverts, and also those kind of unboxing things which were very popular at one point. You actually watch people unbox things.
Oh
which
yes,
I always thought was quite an interesting thing. I've just bought this, and now you can watch me taking it out of the packet.
yeah.
And but they were remarkably. I mean, I think one of the biggest. I think the biggest YouTube channel ever was this little kid who would just get bought presents of toys, and he would unbox them. Anyway, so this person did one of these. Oh, I've gone kind of vegan. I've been at it for about 3 months, and then that didn't become their content, and it got a lot of views, and it wasn't overwhelming for presumably the people watching. And then I think once they were a vegan for a year, they did another one, kind of like it's been a year now, kind of thing. And if that's the idea behind this, that sounds pretty good. And obviously, this is for people who are not like us, who just like to sling our face in everybody's screens and everything, because Colleen is saying, well, you've got to have social movement bravery and also a thick skin. Do you think? I mean, this is suggesting that there's going to be some people who just can't do this, Ronnie.
Well, I think yeah, it's obviously something that's going to be more difficult for some people than others. But it's kind of, those people are going to be posting stuff on social media, aren't they? Anyway, I would imagine. Otherwise, they're not going to be on social media. So it's a question of like, can I?
Yeah, well, one advantage of this for me would be the fact that you're talking about yourself, and so you don't have to know all the stats. You don't have to be able. Oh, there's this billion and that billion.
No, not at all. No,
this per second. You just literally talk about your story, and because in that sense, everybody could do that to some degree.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And also for non-vegans, the vegans doing that kind of content is very popular because it's not threatening. They're not saying you got to go vegan. They're saying this. Let me tell you why I did it.
Yeah,
so
they're just saying, I'm vegan and I just wanted to tell you the reason why. Yeah, that is non-threatening because you're not like accusing anyone else of anything, are you?
That's right. Yeah. Joanna is putting Graham's message up. Yeah, there's a Zoom meeting tomorrow. Anybody tuning in from Ireland who's interested in this new regenerated effort to get us kind of going again, trying to kickstart the movement again, in a sense. Not that it ever went away, but it certainly went down in terms of frequency of things. So look out for the details in the chat. I'm sure it's going to be there. Okay, so moving on then. So 13 and 13. So then we went to 40. So now everything we agreed on after this, Ronnie.
Yeah. Makes it easy.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, where are we? I've got to go 14, right? Lost track. Right. This is your territory here, Ronald.
Yes. What I would say, rather than the social media post, I think what's more likely to get your letter published in a local newspaper, because this is what we're talking about really, is if it refers to something that's previously been in the local newspaper, either an article or a letter. See, what I do is every week I look through my local newspaper, and I actually look through it online because there's a digital edition. Because where I live, we don't actually get a local newspaper delivered because I live in a village and they stopped delivering here, but although it still covers this area. So I look at the digital edition online, or you could look at the paper edition if you get it delivered. And I look for anything on which a letter promoting veganism or kind of animal rights could be hung, for instance. And
yeah, you're looking for a hook, can't you? You're looking for
you're looking for a hook, and then but basically we've got a team of people locally that are they're either prepared to write letters themselves or they're prepared to lend their name to a letter. So they'll allow someone else to write a letter, like using their details. And obviously they've got to agree to the content. Because if you've just got the same one person writing letters all the time, then you're limited to how often they're going to publish letters from the same person. And we will average about, I think we'll probably get about 6 letters published a year in the local paper, normally promoting veganism, but sometimes on other issues as well. I mean, the most recent one we had published was an anti-vivisection one.
Yeah, I saw that today, and so I said we can put one up. So you've got another one to show. Do you want me to put that up?
Yeah, put that one up, because this one is one to do with veganism. What there was just trying to basically what happened was my wife Louise last September, she took part in an action with Animal Rebellion where they blockaded, various dairy supply depots in England, and several of them I think belong to Moolah, the dairy company. And so what I did was I kind of did a press release about her involvement in it to the local paper, and then Moolah, they quoted Moolah in the article saying stuff about that the farmers that supply them don't kill the calves, don't kill the male calves that are a day or two old, because that was something that Louise had been quoted as saying in the original article. So this is a letter by like someone else in the in
Let me
the
see
group.
if I can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah. Countering what Moolah
the
said.
technical thing here, Ronnie, is you see that bit at the end of the first paragraph where you got bracket activists change themselves to lorry. So that is referring back to their own article.
That's referring to the article, you see. So,
yeah,
so this letter is based on an article.
Really like that. If you cite their own article, they like you to do that, because it's kind of like almost like saying to everybody else, "Oh, we're important. We get noticed."
That's right. Yeah. So that's referring to that, and then it's saying that about how male calves are killed at a very young age anyway, killed for veal at 7 months, or for beef fats. I don't know what that was, 18 months, I think. If you scroll, you had to scroll up, show.
Okay, I'll do that. This one.
Yeah, 14 months. Yeah. And it's basically encouraging people to go vegan, and there's a link to the Vegan Society.
So you're looking for a hook. On this occasion, it's your own wife's arrest. What
it is, it was a press release I did about Louise's arrest.
Yeah,
that got in the newspaper as an article, but then of course they went and asked Moolah for their, for a quote.
You got
from
no
them.
shame, Ronnie.
And then this letter is in response to what Moolah said. You see, so basically the whole thing, you can kind of run with it, if you see what I mean. So there was the article, then there's the letter in response to that article, you see. And I mean, we've just sent a letter to the newspaper this week in response to a letter that was in, and the original letter was in response to an article. So sometimes if you've got different people writing, you can keep it going, you see.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, you can do that on social media as well. People used to do that a lot more than they do now. Used to get four or five people together, and they would have a chat amongst themselves. And that means then, because I've always said this, is that if somebody's arguing against you, if you just keep replying diplomatically with facts and figures and this kind of stuff, it's the audience that's the important thing, not the actual person arguing with you. And so if you have a conversation amongst vegans in social media, or like you say here in the actual media, you're keeping the conversation going and you've got an audience watching it.
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize the importance of people still getting stuff in local newspapers. Obviously, they're not as popular as there used to be because of because of social media, and a lot of people get their news online now. But I mean, our local newspaper gets delivered to I don't know, something like 50,000 homes, I think. It's like a big, it's a big circulation.
Yeah, well, let's face it. If you had a social media post that had 50,000 likes, you'd be
or
pretty happy,
50,000, yeah, or 50,000 people get to read it. In other words, like where it's delivered, there are 50,000 people live. That's what I mean. So it wouldn't be. It'd probably be about 20,000 homes, but there'd be 50,000 people living there. And that's a lot of people. And the letters page tends to be one of the most popular pages of a newspaper because people are interested in what other ordinary people have to say.
That's
so it's
true,
still
yeah.
worth doing, and it's something that's kind of gone out of fashion. I think it used to be right into the newspaper used to be much more of a thing.
Used to be like a cliche, though, didn't it? You kind of look at the headlines and look at the sport, look at the obituaries, and look at the letters.
Yeah. It used to be a bigger thing, and it's gone out of. It's I don't know many people these days that write letters to newspapers because of I suppose because of social media, and most of the people I do know are kind of older people as well that have been doing it for years.
Do you think it'd be worth, Ronnie, if you were to set up some kind of event, call it Write to Your Newspapers Week, and even have like a Facebook page, and so that there you go, okay, from this date to this date, we're asking people to write, and then let us know your success stories, and then
that's right. Yeah. I think it's a question of looking. I mean, not every week. We don't send letters every week to the newspaper because there's not a hook every week. If you see what I mean, and also you wouldn't get them published every week.
No. I just meant if you picked a week for everybody to try
everyone
it.
Try. Yeah, that'd be a good idea because there's very often something that you can hang a story on. I mean, like kind of anything really to do. I mean, like I said on one of our previous shows that there was an article in the newspaper about a cow that was rescued from the fire brigade by the fire brigade. She got stuck in a kind of there'd been heavy rain and she got stuck in like a kind of almost like a muddy type of swamp. And the fire brigade winched her up, and there was an article about how marvellous that she'd been saved. And so we got a letter in on that saying, yeah, that is marvellous, she's been saved. But sadly, all those people that are pleased about it, they need to know that unfortunately she probably won't live for very much longer because, of course, dairy cows are killed at 6 years old. And then it went on about the calves and everything like that, and urging people to go vegan. So it's that kind of story that you can kind of hang a letter on.
I mean, have you seen this, Ronnie? This is Andy weeing all over your idea here. Because
I think yes. I mean, I think some people do. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that every single person.
They're bound to, really, aren't they?
What they ought to do if they're going to do that, they should have a sign on the door saying no free newspapers, or on the door. Some people, I've noticed that as I've been going around door dropping, I've seen signs like that on people's doors and it's far better to not have it delivered, isn't it, than just to put it in the recycling bin.
Yeah, so we're halfway through, people. So we're into the top 5, and so let me bung this back up on the screen, and we've got to move to number 35 again. So we've got to go down. Right, all right, t-shirt. This actually came up with Ronnie and I did this this panel of veteran vegans, and it was interesting because the panel were vegans from 30 through to 80 years vegan. That was John Cross. And then the host was vegan for 25 years. So it was almost, I think it was about 500 years vegan between us. I think it was.
And what was amazing was nobody died during the show, did they?
I never thought of it that way, but I don't think so. No.
So, unless someone was like propped up there, like but they.
Well, there was a bit of screens swapping around, so maybe.
I mean, obviously, this is something I do, as you can see with this t-shirt I've got on now. And yeah, I think it can be. I mean, I wear, I wear t-shirts really all the time, kind of really promoting veganism. Obviously in the winter, they're very often they're not seen because I'll have a jacket on over the top, but then I have a badge on my hat, on my cap, or on my beanie hat as well that says vegan on it. So I've always got something on me that promoting veganism, and yeah, it's a good way. I mean, even if I mean, the other day I was in a garden centre, and the guy at the till said, "Oh, I had a vegan t-shirt on." He said, "Oh, I really like your t-shirt." He said, "I'm vegetarian, and I'm kind of trying to go vegan. I'm gradually getting there." And I just encouraged him. I said, "Keep at it. You'll get there." I just give him a bit of encouragement. So that was good for him, to have that conversation with me. And even if people don't say anything, just seeing the word vegan can have an effect. Will make people think about it as another little, another little thing that kind of might push them towards going vegan. So it's a really
Ronnie,
easy.
I got a question. So
Yeah.
The person who commented on your t-shirt was a vegetarian.
Yeah, he was vegetarian, but he was wanting to go vegan, and he said he was kind of,
Yeah, but why didn't you say, "You cow exploiting scumbag"?
Yeah.
And have a go at him?
Oh, well, I'm not. Yeah, but I don't think that would actually probably help him to go vegan. He just thought vegans are horrible, horrible bastards. So I don't want to be one. If I'd said that. No, I just encouraged him. I said, "You'll get there. Keep at it."
And did he take your details or anything like that? Or
yeah, well, he kind of
he took your name, so he knows how to avoid you.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't speak to him for long because there was other people waiting to, it was because it was Easter. It was really busy, so I was only able to have a brief conversation. But it was just that bit of encouragement, and
Look at that, Ronnie. You missed a chance to deck somebody.
A chance for a punch up. Yeah, I think people, one of the things that might put people off wearing a t-shirt is that they're frightened that an anti-vegan might come up and start arguing or have a go at them. But I personally, I've never experienced that.
No, I never have, and not only that, I don't know anybody who has either.
No. All I've experienced is like people like that guy that come up and say, "Oh, they either say I'm vegan as well, or they'll say, I'm wanting to go vegan." And what I'll do as well in kind of in sort of connection with this, I often have I carry about on me, or in my shoulder bag or whatever, I'll have booklets about veganism and stuff like that. And if anyone's interested,
so did you give one to this cow abusing bastard then?
I didn't. To be quite honest, I unfortunately on that one occasion, because we just popped out quickly to the garden centre, I hadn't took the booklets with me.
I'm going to turn you off. I'm going to cancel you, Ronnie Lee.
I think he was a guy that knew the arguments. It was just the practicality of like switching over to the food, really. And he certainly was enthusiastic about going vegan. He didn't really have to be convinced. But I do normally, if I get in a conversation with someone and they're interested, and that might be sparked by the t-shirt, I'll have a booklet, because I've got these kind of recipe booklets that have got the ethical reasons for veganism as well. So they're like practical in terms of what food people can make, but they also,
they've got the ethics as well.
The ethics in as well. So it's a really good combination.
I'm sure you're paid by Animal Aid to plug them, everybody.
I ought to be, shouldn't I? I ought to put in an invoice to them, shouldn't I? Really?
You really well should, because they're just using you as free labour. That's what's going on there. But let me say this: Angie Wright, who was on that panel, what was it? 2 days ago? Was it now? It's
yeah.
I'm so old I can't remember one day from the next anymore. But Angie Wright was on there. She's been vegan for 57 years, right? And she was saying that she still knows there's quite a lot of isolated vegans, and she was saying that's why you need to wear your vegan t-shirts. And he said, and you can guarantee that that people will come up to you and go, "Oh, I'm a vegan as well," or that kind of conversation that you had. And she said, so that's where you're not going to be so isolated. You're going to actually make friends, or at least contacts and everything, because she said, put it the other way, if I was, you know, going through a shopping center and there was another vegan, but they just had a plain t-shirt, I'd be so disappointed that I didn't get to meet them and say hello to them.
And I think the other thing is, and one thing I have to do as well, is I have leaflets from our local vegan group, and if that happens, I'll give them a leaflet and I'll say, look, you know, join our group on Facebook, and you can talk to other vegans through that.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good one.
Yeah,
I particularly like it when you've got a big vegan thing and they come up and say, "Are you vegan?" I love that when they say that.
Yeah, I know. Yes, and of course I told the story before about where I had my badge on my hat, and there was a vegan guy I went to buy some vegan wraps from a shop, and the guy behind the counter was vegan, and he gave them to me for nothing when he saw the badge on my hat.
Yeah, so you can even get freebies, folks.
So sometimes it's not happened. It's not happened since then.
The only other thing I'd say about this is be very choosy and careful about who you buy this stuff from, because I think there's a lot of capitalists just seeing a market and cashing in, and it's not going to a grassroots group or anybody else.
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be better off giving it to your scummy national group, Animal Aid, than just a capitalist thing.
Yes, I mean, a lot of the national organisations sell these. You know, sell t-shirts.
But you just see them on social media just popping up now, don't you? Vegan.
Yeah,
vegan.
I think you've got to be careful, because if you go on their website, they've probably got anti-vegan t-shirts on there as well.
Oh yeah, they probably do. Yeah,
pro Donald Trump t-shirts and just anything trying to get everyone to buy them.
This is obviously a good one. So that was number 5, folks. So let's move on to number 4. Can you feel the tension mounting? I'm kind of juddering with excitement here. So we got to move to number 15 now, Ronnie. Let me get my silly equipment working. What's it gonna be? Miles away from it. We didn't pick that one, did we? That was
we did. This was all. Well, I was very tempted with this one.
I bet you were. Yeah, but which one? The writing or the picture?
Well, the writing's the exact opposite of the picture, isn't it?
Well, that's why I picked it. Yeah.
Yes.
Because when I first read that, I thought, "What are you on about?"
I know.
There we go. All right.
Yes.
Make a big sign, Ronnie.
Yeah, but make a big sign promoting veganism. I mean, this is something I've not done. I mean, when I've done stuff on the street, it's been with a stall, and obviously there are signs at the stall that promote veganism, that attract people to come to the stall. Because I think the thing is, I think if you do this, and I mean, this is this is a great idea. But what I would say as well is have some vegan literature as well to give to people that you have a conversation with, because you may not be able to go into too much detail in the conversation. So it's good for them to go away with some literature.
Yeah, so, well, my plan for one of those, the pedestrianized areas, is if you get some of these banners, which are not cheap, but you can sometimes get 4 at a time. So you could then have 4 people, 2 back to back, in sight of each other, right? And so that means that the people going one way are going to see 2 vegan signs. People going the other way are going to, and then depending on who if somebody asks you a question that you don't know, you send them to the other people and all that kind of stuff. And it is a good way of doing outreach, this. And like you say, have some leaflets so they can take stuff away from you as well as just talking to you.
Yes. And I think this is, it's just another form of street outreach. I mean, it might be a thing to do where it's not possible to set up a table, perhaps.
Yeah, but I don't think this is illegal anywhere, though, is it? I mean, I don't think we've done it all over Dublin,
I think if you were doing it in a private shopping area, they could.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't get away with it in one of those. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of a public space, right?
In a public space, I think you could probably. I mean, often you get away in kind of public areas of setting up an information table, but obviously you've got to do it in a way where you're not causing any sort of obstruction. And having someone with a sign is less likely to cause an obstruction, isn't it, than having a table? So it could work in that kind of situation.
Yeah, this actually was. I was on this. This is a march in Dublin, and so I was on the march, but I was also giving a talk at the end of it, and so we took this along with it. And I thought, well, I might as well just, instead of having it folded down, I might as well carry it, you know. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
So, that's what I did. Right, people. 3 to go.
Hey.
I know, amazing or what? Right, where are we? So we've got to go back to number 5 now, Ronnie. What's it going to be, people? Place your bets. Whoops, we've gone past it.
You went past it. Yes.
There you go.
That's that is a photo I took.
Street, Ronnie.
Yeah, that's a photo I took of a leaflet I left on the seat of a train. I do this all the time. If I'm traveling on public transport, which I do try to use public transport rather than the car, if at all possible. I mean, mainly for like environmental reasons, but also
you're a serial litterer, aren't you, Ronnie?
Another good reason. Well, I think the worst that can happen is somebody comes and puts it in the bin. I mean, I remember putting one on. I put one of these on a seat of a train, and the train guy was going through the train, and you know, like, I don't know, the guard, and he picked it up and threw it in the bin.
And you got it back out again?
I just got it out again. I don't necessarily think it was because it was a vegan leaflet. I think it was just anything on the seats he was binning, and I just got it out and used it again. But yeah, I mean, you know, trains, buses, waiting rooms, any public place, you can leave leaflets. When I go on a journey, I'll, you know, on public transport especially, I'll have leaflets with me, and I'll kind of leave them on seats.
Do you think, Ronnie? Do you think this would work? Is if on a still day when it wasn't raining, if you got some blue tack or equivalent, not to advertise, and you got your leaflets like this, which were just A5, you know, 2 sides but not fold out. You just kind of stick them onto lampposts and stuff. Do you think that?
Yeah,
would
you
work?
could. Yeah, because someone can pull the leaflet off, can't they? Read it.
Yeah, they could do it.
Yeah, you can do stuff like that. The other thing is books in libraries, or oh, I've got Abby's come to join me. Come on, come in. That's it. Books in libraries, magazines in supermarkets. I've done that. Put them in magazines in supermarkets. There's, you know, all sorts of places you can put leaflets. The other one is under windscreen wipers of cars. I mean, you can just do it. You could do a whole car park, a whole parking lot with them if you wanted to. I tend to be, because I have done that, to be honest, but normally I'll do it like, say, if someone's got a sticker in their car from an animal rescue, maybe a local dog rescue, I'll put that under their windscreen wiper, put a leaflet under their windscreen wipers. The one about, you know, that particular one as well, that there was a photo of. And the other thing that you can do, which involves is kind of somewhat similar, is door dropping, you know, delivering leaflets through people's letterboxes, which is not possible in all countries, but certainly we can do that here in the UK. You can do it in Ireland. I think in other countries as well, it's possible to put them through.
Well, I don't know if we're allowed to, but we are doing so.
Yeah, I think you are allowed to. I think, you know,
not being nicked yet. What do you think about business cards, Ronnie? Because they're pretty cheap to get done.
I think if you're having, I think that might be an idea for kind of printing your own. If they're
that's what I mean.
Get done than leaflets, and yeah, those can, like a business card size thing with
yeah, that's right. I mean, I've got somewhere.
And you know, have some website addresses on it that people can go to as well if you're doing something like that, because obviously there's a limited amount of text you can have on there. Yeah,
like that, right?
Yes. Has that got a website link on
the other side?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, something like that.
See, the thing is, in some supermarkets, right, you've got these little kind of little kind of shelves where you usually put these little adverts, and they are about that kind of size. Now you might have to pay, but they might let you pay, or if you could just try it first. You just plonk it in there and just see how long it lasts.
You know? Yeah, we've got ones that'll take sort of A5 or A6 leaflets, and sometimes I just put them in there. I'll just put the leaflets in there. Just hope
this is one of the VIP ones, Colleen. So it's Vegan Information Project.
Yeah.
And that's the quote from Tom Reagan, 1983.
And also in libraries often have kind of leaflet racks where you can pop.
Of course, libraries used to allow you to do a display, didn't they, for about a month or something, or 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, we've got like the area we cover. There's 3 libraries, and 2 of them does let us have displays. We've had displays in there for Veganuary, where we left leaflets, and they'll put a collection of like vegan cookery books together as part of it, and then we can kind of put leaflets and stuff along with it.
Actually, now you said that, it might be easier to get into libraries nowadays because they're going to have so many vegan. I went to an Irish library for the first time for years, and I was really surprised by the number of vegan cookbooks there and stuff. And so, if they're going, we couldn't be having that, and say, well, you've got a shelf full of vegan cookbooks over there.
Yeah, and I think if it coincides with like an event, I mean, there's obviously Veganuary, or there's World Vegan Month, which is November, and that's another time you could kind of you could put stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a good time for anything.
Yes,
especially things like press releases as well.
Yes.
Okay, moving on then, because we're coming up to the hour, so we're doing well time. So number 2, which is number 1, if that makes sense. So let me put this back up, and number 2 is number 1, which is that one, Chalktivism. With my weird G, I got so much piss taken out of me for doing
this. Is something I've never done personally, but I do see the value of it. I mean, obviously, once again, it's reminding people it's another way of, like, getting the word vegan and getting veganism into their heads. Quite easy to do. It used to be extremely popular. I'm not quite sure it's as popular now as it kind of used to be, but it certainly still goes on.
I think a lot of people combine it with events like Earthlings Experience.
Yes,
now.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
This one was actually just done, but I mean, I think we were there for about 3.5 hours, and a lot of people come up and to see what you're doing while it's actually been done. And then most people, I mean, you don't get people coming up and trying to wipe it out or anything like that. I mean, most people actually politely walk around it and stuff, unless they can't. So yeah, this I would recommend this, because but not really on your own. I mean, you need about 3 or 4 people to make this kind of pretty fun. And also, it means that you can have somebody there who can be talking to the people, and they, as you say, Ronnie, they could have a pocket full of leaflets.
Yes, absolutely. If people stop to read it and look at it, I mean, it's great if you've got someone that's a really good artist, and you can have, like, I mean, this is quite artistic, isn't it, in a sense? What you've
of course it is. I did it, Ronnie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes. I mean, you missed your profession there, Roger. Yeah, something that's like attractive, and people stop and look and say, "Oh, would you like some information?"
I think it's the G that did it. I think the G sucked people in, thinking, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. So Chalktivism is definitely a good thing. I don't know whether there used to be a Chalktivism week or day, didn't they? I don't know whether
there was. I think there was a day of action. I think that might still go on. I don't know what time of year it is. I think it's kind of perhaps more in the summer, because you wouldn't want to do it in the pouring rain.
You always got to get some comedians, isn't it? What is it meant to be? Yeah, it's meant to be a G. I've had enough of this. This is about the 5th or 6th year that I've had ribbing for that G. I'll tell you. So, right then, are we ready for number 1?
We are. Yes.
Wow. Well, I mean, we ought to do that kind of top of the pops kind of thing, didn't we? With Fluff Freeman, you know, at number 10 was, you know, and all that, but we won't. Okay, so number 1 is number 37. Blimey, I've got to go all the way back. 37. Do my own sound effects and everything.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they'll be signing you up for the TV.
And here it is.
Yes.
So this is the street stalls.
Yeah, your street stalls, which can be big or small. I mean, in a kind of, I mean, this is a big one because it's the one you did in Dublin, isn't it? Where you've got a lot of space and stuff.
We're starting this again in about 2 weeks. We would have already started, but somebody broke their finger.
But hopefully the finger's on the mend. And
well, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. But this can be done in a small way. I mean, we've done stalls in like our local towns with just I think we've got like a kind of, we've got a 6-foot table and we've got a 4-foot table, and it depends on the space available at events. But often we've just got a 6-foot table. We've got placards. We've got some backboards that we can sometimes put on top of the table if it's not too windy. Leaflets.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. They're actually kind of display boards on top.
Yeah, display boards, yeah, but they're quite light, so they're more for like indoor events.
Yeah.
And what you do is you kind of stand in front of the table, because obviously you can't stand behind it because you'd be obscured by the boards. But that's kind of what we do.
Oh yeah, okay. That's
and we've done we've done stalls on the street, but the other place where we do stalls locally is at community events. And this is something I think that a lot of kind of vegan outreach groups don't think about. They tend to be focused with street stuff, and you know, it's good to do stuff on the street, but also there are other places you can do it. I mean, we'll do stalls at like dog rescue fundraising events where they have like a fun dog show and stuff like that, and that's usually held in a local park or somewhere like that. And we'll do kind of various indoor events like local environmental fairs or health fairs, just general community fairs, like family fun days that are kind of held outside, you know, sort of places where they have bouncy castles and stuff like that, and they invite people to come along and do a stall. You often have to pay something, but it's not an awful lot of money to book a stall. So there's all sorts of opportunities to do stalls at community events that don't have to be in the street. And of course, the indoor events have got the advantage of it. You know, they're not like really dependent on the weather.
Yes. Okay. So we've got our top 10 people.
I don't know what is, are you winding? Are you winding something in your hand there, Roger?
Yeah, that's right now.
Yeah,
but I was about to announce you, Ronnie.
Yeah, yeah. But this is something that's, but like as I've said with outreach, like I kind of roughly put outreach into kind of 2 categories. One is like everyday life outreach, where you're kind of going about your everyday life and you can do outreach at the same time, and that would be the type of thing like you've got leaflets and you leave them in places. You know, that's like your everyday life outreach, or where you're wearing a T-shirt that might lead you, or a badge that might lead you to a conversation, or to be able to give someone some literature. That's like every day, as you're going about your everyday life, you can do that. And then there's like what I would call kind of
deliberate
spare time outreach, where you've got to allocate extra time to the outreach.
You split things up into spare time or littering.
Yeah, it's yeah, littering. Yeah. Well, you know, I think you've got to weigh it up. I mean, obviously, you know, probably quite a lot of those leaflets do get hopefully put in the bin, and hopefully the recycling bin. But I've kind of known, you know, I know really quite a lot of people that have become vegan because they read a leaflet, and so they definitely are effective.
Yeah.
And another thing we do, like Christmas time, we dress up in Santa hats, and well, I've got more than a hat. I've got a bit of a Santa costume that I wear, and we give leaflets out in the street about how people can have a compassionate Christmas. Go vegan at Christmas, and various groups produce those. You could do your own. So it's like on an occasion like that, you could do that. Normally, we wouldn't just dish them out. We'd kind of have them at a stall.
See how well I've got you trained now. You always go, there's lots of groups giving them out, but you can do your own. I've got you trained now, right?
I think it kind of depends. I mean, we do a combination locally. We do use leaflets from national groups because we can get them free. But sometimes we do print our own as well. It depends on usually we print our own if we're putting on an event and we want people to come to the event, and we'll print our own for that. That's when that's when we tend to do that.
Very good.
So there's that. So there's and then there's, like I said, there's the type of outreach where you kind of have to kind of allocate time to it, which would be your street stalls and your door dropping and stuff like that. But these are all important ways of doing outreach, and something I'd encourage. I mean, there's stuff that people can do on their own, and also other things that you can do in a group, or are better done in a group. It's probably I've done information stalls many times on my own. Even ones involving setting up a gazebo, I've done them on my own.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's nicer and
and I think if you've got more people, you can do more. Like you can maybe.
And there is a gendered issue to that as well, isn't there, Ronnie?
Well, I think women on their own in certain circumstances, might kind of feel threatened. It depends. That might be more in the street. At a community event, that wouldn't be so much the case. But as I said, like one thing we've done in the past is vegan food samples, and I think you certainly need more than one person if you're doing that, I would say. But it's kind of I'd encourage everyone to do what they can in terms of outreach, and also do what they can in encouraging other local vegans to get active. Because I think there are a lot of potential vegan activists out there who wouldn't actually go into the centre of a big city to take part in a Cube of Truth or an Earthlings experience, but would be prepared to do something in their local area. And I think it's a question of we're not really doing enough in the movement to kind of mobilise those people, because we're not putting on the events that those people can do, and we're not doing anything to encourage.
Here's one for you, Ronnie, because obviously you always talk about local events and everything. And do you think some people might be put off for that very reason, though, that they're going to be in that area afterwards?
Yes, I think that might be the case. If that is the case, then what they could do is say they're worried about
local area
in their own town. They're worried about doing stuff in their own town, for some reason. Then, go to the next town and help the vegan group in the next town too.
Yeah, you don't smash the butcher's shop down the road, do you?
No, you kind of don't. I've known people that have done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I used to smash the window of the first shop round the corner from me. When I lived in North London many years ago. Yeah,
surprised you didn't come back and smash yours.
Well, I think it would have been difficult because I think I lived in an upstairs flat at the time. But it never
just smashed everybody's.
I was never discovered, thankfully, doing it.
No.
Once I threw a stone aimed at the window, and it bounced on the guy that ran the fur shop. It bounced on his car windscreen.
Oh, well,
it span out my hand. This stone
a double whammy. Then was it? Did it hit
it hit his wind? It span out my hand as I was throwing it at the window of the shop. It bounced on his car windscreen and broke his car windscreen, and then it bounced off the windscreen and went through the window of the shop.
I hope you're wearing those gloves with Trump's fingerprints on them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd always wear. I think.
Right then, people.
Anyway, so I'm just encouraging people to kind of to get active. A lot of these things are very, very simple to do, and it's stuff that all vegans can do. So, you know, and encourage all vegans watching this to kind of, you know, to get involved in
This is a new
outreach.
line for you, Ronnie. This is I've never
said that. I've never said it before, no, but I don't think it can be said enough, to be honest. That unless we, you know, to get animal liberation, we need to educate, you know, a lot more people to go vegan, and it's only vegans that can do that. And so many vegans don't do it. And you know, if they did, then you know we'd be getting there.
Indeed. Okay, so we're almost at the end. Then I think we ought to probably go down the top 10 as they do on the radio. You know the theme for the pick of the pops, don't you, Ronnie? You know,
oh yes, that's right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
okay, you got to do that a couple of times. So let's start this. So at number 10, then activist poppers, we had support your vegan outreach establishments. At number 9, we have animal sanctuaries. We support your animal sanctuaries. At number 8, we had stickers, car stickers, and at number 7, we had do some video work. So Ronnie, come on, lad. Okay. At number 6, is it 6 yet? We have writing letters to your local newspapers. At number 5, we had wearing your t-shirts and your badges and any other thing that you can think of. Number 4 was your big sign. Come on, Ronnie. Right, okay. Number 3 was literature. Take some literature with you wherever you go, and don't forget like what Ronnie did. Number 2, chalktivism, and then finally, doing a stall, everyone. So yeah, there you go. There's your top 10, all on one program. So if you find some people who come up to you in your next vegan event and go, I want to get involved, but I just don't know what to do, and you've got to go, have I got a video for you? and this is it. Right. I think let's just have a last look at any of the. While I was messing around and being an idiot just then, I'll see if I can. Roger's techno skills are getting more and more sophisticated. Yeah, I can push buttons too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I always wanted to be a DJ. Actually, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a DJ. You know, I joined Tony Blackburn's knee knocking club. I was number 165. I think that was about 1971.
He's not one of the ones that's been jailed, is he, Tony Blackburn?
No, I think he escaped it. Yeah.
Because they're mostly in jail, the DJs from that time, aren't they?
Yeah, well, every prison now has got a wing which is 1970s TV personality.
Yeah, and that's, you know, but maybe they ought to have been jailed for the music they played.
Yeah, well, I might be jailed for trying to do that music.
Yeah, until punk came along, that was all right.
Yeah, good old John Peel, eh? But then he's got a dodgy story as well, hasn't he?
Has he? I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
probably.
Yeah. Oh, I have to tell you offline. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
That's not.
Everybody in the chat's now going, "What is it? What is
it?"
Or even who's he talking about?
Well, John Peel used to play a lot of like up and coming bands on his show, and it was like
until he was dug up by the.
There was a famous huntsman of the name John that had the same name, John Peel, and some people tried to dig him up, but that was a different John Peel. But the John Peel on the radio, he used to play. You know, a lot of bands became famous because John Peel, they were unknown, and then John Peel played one of their recordings on this show. And so when I was in a punk band in the late 1970s. We did a demo tape in a recording studio, and we were going to send it to John Peel. But our drummer said he had a mate who worked at the BBC and that he could get his mate to put this tape on John Peel's desk rather than it going through the post, so that there was more of a chance of John Peel seeing it and playing it. So we gave him the tape to go and do that. You know, we wrapped it up in a package, gave it to him. And then, like, we didn't hear anything for ages. I was listening to John Peel every night, and he never played any of our numbers. You see, so after a few weeks by, we kind of challenged the drummer of our group and said, you know, John Peel hasn't played any of our numbers. What happened to the tape? And he was trying to kind of avoid telling us, but he had to admit that what happened was his mate put it on John Peel's desk in this package. It was a time when there was lots of IRA bombings. So when they found this strange package on John Peel's desk, they got the like bomb disposal squad.
Oh, well, it hasn't come through the usual channels.
Because it hadn't come through the usual channels, and they destroyed our tape.
Well, you'd like that as punks, wouldn't you? It'd be very appropriate.
Yeah. So I don't know. We didn't bother. I don't know. We didn't bother to send him another one. I don't think after that. So.
Well, you'd have thought that might be a great idea to do it again, though, Ronnie. Couldn't be asked.
Yeah. I don't know why we didn't do it again, but we didn't. So we never became famous.
Yes. Oh dear, Ronnie. Yeah. In fact, yeah. Very oh dear.
Yeah.
Right, people. Thanks so much for sticking with us for all this time. I hope you liked our top 10, and I hope you agreed with it. Although I'm sure none of you.
And I hope lots of people will do it, or at least do some of the ones in there. That would be.
Yeah, we'll. The next show will be our worst 10. No,
oh no! I know what the worst. I know what number 1 is of the worst 10.
You do?
Well, it's the butcher's.
Oh, you reckon?
Butcher one,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, that did. Yeah, that's right. It did get the most kind of do what response in it, kind of.
I know. Yeah.
Well, people. So next week we shall be back, and that's providing, Ronnie,
we are both still alive.
Hello, Earthlings, and welcome to Still Alive. We're Ronnie's in Britain and I'm in Ireland. We're both suffering a bit of a heat wave, I suppose you might call it, Ronnie.
Yeah, I thought I was going to melt earlier. I had to go shopping this morning. It was like the heat was, almost unbearable. So
shopping in the heat. That's
shopping
good,
in the heat. It's a nightmare. I think it's about 26 at the moment here where I am.
The thing is that people will be tuning in thinking, "Oh, that's a bit chilly."
They probably will from some parts of the world. Yeah, no, but it's hot. It's a bit too hot for me. I don't like the real big heat very much.
Well, if it was cold, you wouldn't like that either, would you?
No, if it's too cold, no. I prefer the sort of moderate temperatures, really.
Okie dokie. Right. So people, if you're logged in anywhere else besides my YouTube and you want to take part in the chat, the best thing to do is transfer to my YouTube. So, Ronnie, did you do you remember when I told you my chiropractor joke?
I don't think I. No, I vaguely remember it, but I don't know. I'm not. I don't totally remember it.
Hang on. It was it was a week back.
Are you here all week, Roger?
Yeah, I'll be back.
Are you here all week? week back.
There's Graham in the comments. He got advance notice that I was going to do that, so that's what. So he goes, do it, Roger. So I had to do it. Now, another one we've been asked to, or I've been asked to, just have a little word about why we put this up. It's really to do with the fact that I'm very critical of this idea of super chats and whatever else there is, which is similar to that kind of idea. But I'm not opposed to people giving content creators donations and stuff. It's just that the idea of making them do it in order to ensure that your post, your comment gets on the screen. I that's the bit of it that I don't like, really. Yeah. And also it can be abused in the sense that there was a time when somebody spent about $130 in order to be the person being featured on screen all the way through this live. So it can be abused in that sense. And so, I mean, I've got no problem with people, with content creators wanting to, for example, send them a one-off on Patreon over and above what they normally do. But the idea of paying to actually, get your stuff on the screen just seems a bit off to me, Ronnie. So that's the reason for it, really.
It's kind of discriminatory against people that aren't so well off, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that's what happened on this live stream. There was somebody who was well off and had a particular kind of political axe to grind, and they made sure that they were able to, have their say over and above, well over above everybody else. And so I just thought, that's not on, really. That's not on. Anyway, let's say hello to people in the chat. So Lorraine was first. So hi, Lorraine. Michael, not first for once. So, but he did come up with this little witticism, which is probably better than my joke, probably.
Yeah, every week's a miracle, isn't it, for us?
Yeah. And then I said that you're all steamed up. So
yeah,
you're all steamed up. So this is one of the Facebook pages that we stream to as well as this. You probably can't see this, Ronnie, but I can see that we've got one person tuned in on Facebook. Deb is here. Terry, hi Terry. Graham, Darren. Who else? Sophia, hi. To begin to I think that might Canadian Vegan Forever. Hello. I'm glad to see that you've recovered from your jet lag. That might be it now, I think. Yeah, that's it so far. Right, Ronnie, so you've got this fangled idea about infighting. No, inReach.
inReach, yeah, inReach. Yeah, I mean, I just hope it doesn't sound rude to some people, or perhaps that's just my mind.
inReach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll have to send me a private memo because I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, of course, we've all heard of outreach. That's where you're kind of trying to educate non-vegans to go vegan. I think that's vegan outreach. But I kind of think it's important that we have inReach as well. Like kind of education.
I think you ought to explain what it is.
Yeah, I mean, in inReach is educating people who are already vegan, or who consider themselves to be vegan, because it's my view that vegan education doesn't stop when somebody becomes vegan, and I think it kind of continues. That a lot of people who regard themselves as vegan, who don't totally grasp the true nature of veganism, and don't totally grasp or don't totally understand all the areas in which other animals are oppressed and exploited. And so I think that vegan education doesn't actually stop when somebody becomes vegan. I think it's a continuing process. And all of us are learning all the time. I'm finding out, all the time about, various ways that other animals are oppressed, and you know, and once you find out about that, then you know, you sort of do your best to try and do something about that, or at least to avoid any involvement in it.
Yeah, you're gonna hit a bit of pushback straight off, aren't you? Because like, who decides, you know, who needs educating and in what sense?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a question of like going up to someone saying, "Hey, you need educating more." I think it's just, you know, as we do on the show, really, because really a lot of our show that we do, like tonight, is to do with inReach. You know, we're talking mainly to people who are already vegan, who consider themselves to be vegan. You know, and our message is aimed at those people. We have I think we have a probably exclusively vegan audience. And so what we're doing with this show is inReach. You know, we're talking to people about, you know, about what does it really mean to be vegan, or what should it mean to be vegan? And we've done shows about the, you know, the forms of the oppression of other animals that a lot of vegans tend to ignore or not.
Well, that's another reason why we shouldn't be charging them to be able to comment either as well, because it's got to be democratic, hasn't it?
Well, absolutely, yes. We want everyone to be able to, you know, ask questions and to, you know, and to comment. I mean, we may not be able to kind of get to all the comments, of course, but it means there's no discrimination in favour of people that have got, you know, more money than others.
Yeah. Okay. So the real problem, we were kind of touching on this before we came on air, which was the fact that and it's difficult not to kind of come over as a bit of a boring old fart saying this. It's just that it seems like the communication skills are not what they once were. Let's put it this way. And so we've always got that thing about, you know, the way that people, especially on social media, interact and talk to each other is not what you would do if you were over on a table, and it you know, over a table having a chat, as it were, and it's not also what used to be the case when you used to have to like write a letter, you know, like you used, I mean, before the internet, it was a question that, you know, you'd see some comment or see some article, and it's the same with you know, responding to the press. You kind of go, oh, in response to, and then you kind of reference what you're talking to, right, and all that. And so you have to construct an argument, which is usually based on explaining a little bit about what the argument is that you want them to critique. And so, in other words, it's a lot more considered than just a few one-liners, which is usually sprinkled with swear words. So, you know, in other words, Ronnie, what I'm saying is inReach, which I would call, from a social movement point of view, movement reflexivity, the idea of being reflective about what's going on in the movement. I mean, is it kind of doomed because of the modern way that we talk to each other now, do you think?
Well, I think I think it makes it more difficult because what tends to happen is on social media is that an argument ensues rather than a discussion, because you get people, you know, you get insults flying about. You get a lot of people that don't really, they seem not to really read or understand what the, you know, if a post is put up on, say on Facebook, it could be Twitter or, you know, or elsewhere, you know, putting forward an idea, then what tends to happen is it's almost as if, you know, there are quite a few people that don't really read it properly, and will actually attack the person who's put up the post for something that the person hasn't actually really said. If you see what I mean, it's like,
well, I think the obvious version of that is when somebody might actually respond with, say, a 10-minute video and say, watch this, that'll give you the clue kind of thing. And then within 3 minutes, somebody's saying, well, that's a load of, whatever, doo-doo. And you know for a fact they haven't had time to even watch it. So it's a little bit like you don't have time. You haven't had time to read that. Never mind, consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that. I mean, in video discussions, there's been someone commenting, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I've said, well, did you watch the video? Oh, I watched the first few minutes and then I stopped watching it. I thought, well, you haven't, how can you say that? Because you've not watched it. You've not watched it all the way through. So that is true. And that is something I've experienced.
I've lost count of the number of times that I've been called an ivory tower academic online by people who don't quite know who I am, so it's all a bit weird. But
well, that's right. Yeah. And of course, I think this is kind of another problem with the movement that people aren't aware of the history. They don't know the history, and so we kind of, in a sense, need to know the history, and because otherwise we can't learn from it.
Well, some people would say you don't need to, and also that was then, this is now, and that's just a load of boring old farts. And this is up to date stuff. We're not talking about your black and white days. So maybe we haven't made the case for people to know the history.
Well, I think they just don't. Well, I don't know how we can make the case any more than we do already, just by saying, well, look, if you can't, to understand, for instance, in terms of what veganism is all about, what does it mean to be vegan? What's the definition of veganism? The only way you can determine that is by going back to the founders of the vegan movement, the founders of the Vegan Society, for instance, and determining what they intended. That's really the only way you could do it, because it's
more complicated though, Ronnie, isn't it? Because we've now got an official definition, which itself doesn't really, articulate what the founders said. So that's a kind of real complication. So if you go back, you can go, are we talking about going back to the 1940s, or are we talking about going back to 79, 88? Because
I'd say you've got to go back to the people that coined the word vegan and the people that founded the Vegan Society. It's really what their intentions are, and really the Vegan Society today and the definition of the Vegan Society should be reflecting what those original founders' intentions were. All right, maybe not using the same language, because language has changed from those days. But the definition of veganism today should reflect what those people intended.
Yeah, look, I was called a gatekeeper for providing links to some of our pioneers. But I mean, you must have had. I mean, I've had it, and I'm guarantee you've had this, Ronnie, which is people go, I don't care what Donald Watson said, and I don't care what the pioneers said. It's irrelevant to me.
Well, if you're going to call yourself vegan, say someone called themselves a Marxist and they said, I don't care what Karl Marx said, I'm just going to make up what Marxism is. Well, that'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? And it's the same, really, isn't it? It's the same principle.
Yeah, I'd say so. Just wanted to go back to a couple of comments that I saw before. Yeah, so Jennifer said InReach sounds cool, and it should be, really. It should be kind of it should be like an ongoing, friendly, kind of cooperative kind of process, really, shouldn't it?
Oh yes, absolutely, yes, because because you're dealing with people who've got good intentions. You see, if someone becomes vegan, because I mean, first of all, I think it's important for people to understand that veganism is a justice movement. It's not an environmental movement. It's not a health movement. Although veganism, is better for the environment, and it can be better for health. But veganism itself is a justice movement, and it's a movement against oppression and against exploitation.
Don't you think the problem there is when you get people saying that veganism has got nothing to do with those things, which for me is wrong, particularly the environmental thing.
Well, you see, I would say there's two ways in which kind of veganism is connected with environmentalism. I think first of all, veganism is definitely of benefit to the environment. I mean, especially if you look at the huge contribution to the climate crisis created by animal agriculture. Obviously, if everyone in the world were to adopt a vegan diet, that would kind of that would pretty much solve the climate crisis. Because it's like, I mean, for instance, the environmental organization Climate Healers, that they've done a paper that comes to the conclusion that animal farming is 87% responsible for global heating. You see, so in that sense, yeah, everyone adopting a vegan diet would be massively better for the environment, and also in terms of preventing the extinction of species, because we could rewild so much land if everyone adopted a vegan diet, because we wouldn't need nearly as much land to produce our food, for instance. And then there's also the idea that adhering to vegan principles and not wanting to cause oppression to other animals would mean that the other major aspects of the other major driver of global heating, which is the burning of fossil fuels, we deal with that as well. Because
it's just really. I mean, it's not. I mean, this is not even hard, so I don't really. I don't see why it's a problem. But if somebody wants to talk to you about the environment, you can talk to them about that. I mean, if somebody wants to talk to me about animal cruelty, I will do that. But then I will bring it back round to what veganism is about.
You see, I've just talked about how somebody being vegan can also have the effects of protecting the environment. You see, but I would say that protecting the environment is and should be an integral part of being vegan, because of the huge suffering and death caused to other animals by adverse human impact on the environment. And for me, that should be included in the vegan ethic. Other things included within the vegan ethic. I mean, the main thing that everyone includes is like, don't consume animal products. And there are some people that think that that's all that veganism means. It's just a diet. And so those people that think that kind of, need to be educated, and I'd say, gently educated, that veganism is actually far more than that, and it's in opposition to all exploitation of sentient life.
You like this one, Ronnie? This is Vegan Paul. I got told in the Friends of Camp Beagle group today that being vegan won't help beagles.
Well, it absolutely will help. And I mean, it was interesting that I was at an anti-vivisection event on Saturday in Hull, and it was in protest against a company called Banting in Kingman, who breed and supply animals to laboratories, and
they've been around for years, haven't they?
Decades. Yeah, they've been around years. I think we raided some of their places.
Yeah.
in my ALF days, and I think we rescued animals from them. And they've got a place up on in East Yorkshire, and it was a march in Hull, and with speakers, and I was one of the speakers. And in my speech, or certainly in part of my speech, I pointed out that a really important way, a fundamental way of opposing vivisection, opposing animal experimentation, is to promote veganism. Because why do we, if you ask the question, what's the fundamental reason that experiments on other animals take place? And the fundamental reason that those experiments take place is because of speciesism and human supremacism. So if we want to end all animal experiments, we have to challenge that attitude. We have to challenge speciesism. We have to challenge human supremacism, because that's the underlying reason why. Well, that's the underlying reason why all exploitation and oppression of other animals takes place, including animal experiments. So educating other people to become vegan is a really important way of opposing and eventually getting rid of animal experiments. It's absolutely fundamental. It's absolutely crucial. It's so important for someone to say that that veganism has nothing to do with animal experiments. It's that they're like that's a complete misunderstanding of
I think they would probably say it's a little, but the point is, Ronnie, already we're seeing that if we're talking about InReach, which sounds a great idea, and the idea of vegans talking to each other is obviously, well, yeah, this is what should happen and why not and all that. But if you've got the single issue people, if you've got the animals only people, if you've then got the veganism got nothing to do with the environment kind of people, then already you can kind of see how difficult this task would be, because you're going to get some fundamental disagreements.
Yes, but you see, I would kind of take everyone back to basics, and I'd ask someone, because interesting enough, a lot of those people that will be saying, veganism's got nothing to do with, campaigning against animal experiments, a lot of those people will be vegan themselves. This is the irony, because they are traditional single issue campaigners like we were back in the day. They're like a remnant of the old days, really, that's carried on, because that's what we were like. That's what we were like.
It's because veganism gets in the way of that way of doing it, which is kind of, see, I'm a little bit confused about this, because even in vegan outreach, we're quite welcoming to people who are not yet vegan, right? So it's not as though vegan outreach is there and somebody comes along and takes an interest and you say, well, if you're not vegan, go away, right? And so, but it seems like the fundamental problem for the single issue people based on vivisection, for example, or anything else, for whatever, is the fact that they want or expect a lot of non-vegans to be central to their campaign, right? And so the focus on veganism is going to stop them getting involved. I think that's what they're worried about, isn't it?
I think it's kind of partly to do with that, but I think it's partly to do with, they kind of want the concentration to be on the particular single issue that they're concerned with. So they would feel that if someone's...
So they think veganism is a dilution then?
They think veganism is educating people to become vegan. They think it's like a distraction from that.
Distraction, okay.
In other words, if I'm out educating people to become vegan, instead of protesting outside my nearest animal research laboratory, then I'm not doing what is required to put an end to animal experiments. You see that in their opinion. Whereas I would argue I'm absolutely doing the most important thing I can do to put an end to animal experiments.
My experience of this, Ronnie, is that you've got some people in the movement, and there are also a lot of them are actual vegans on themselves, but they're very pessimistic about the idea of veganism, and so they think that is trying to bring something very distant into focus, whereas here we've got an issue right there in front of us, so let's do that. Right.
Yeah, I call it's like immediate. Well, it's what I call immediatism. and I think it's something that plagues humanity, actually.
It's understandable, though, isn't it?
Well, I think it's something that's maybe a little bit in our DNA. You see, because if you go back to days when, you know, when humans lived in caves, then, you know, their most pressing concern was like immediate threats. You know, immediate threats to their survival. Say, like if I was going to say if a dinosaur came in the cave, but that'd be like not sort of. That wouldn't be historically correct, would it? But maybe a saber-toothed tiger, you know, they'd be like, you know, worried about stuff like that immediate, you know, all the time. It's about like kind of surviving from one minute to the next minute. And so all the time, what you're concerned about is immediate threats. There's no long term. There's nothing long term in anything in that situation. You know, that those people would not think of any long-term threats. It would be all about immediate threats, you see. And I think that's something that's kind of stayed with us, although we've kind of technologically, you know, things have changed, you know, massively. You know, our technology has become so much more advanced since those days. But I think that, you know, maybe our brains in some ways haven't, or that part of our brain that
but Ronnie, if you're saying if you're saying we're hardwired to do that, then you're actually going against.
I don't think that we're I don't think we're hardwired to do that in the sense that there isn't an alternative, but I think that's something that will pull people in that particular direction. I think within humans there's different forces that kind of can pull us different ways. And like, for instance, if you're trying to educate somebody to go vegan, then, you know, their concern about what is happening to the other animals and is something that would like pull them in the direction of veganism. But then they've got other pulls pulling them the other ways, such as like not wanting to be different to anyone else, you know, force of habit. They're used to eating particular foods and people don't like change. And so there's these conflicting tensions within people. And I think that is something that was within people, this thing about to only look at what's immediate rather than looking more long term is equivalent to that. So I don't think it's something that can't be overcome, you know, because, you know, the people do become vegan, don't they? You know, this kind of force of habit and, you know, want to be like everyone else, you know.
But it's not impossible, but there's a bit of resistance.
It's a resistance. It's that, you know, that I think that's an explanation of why people tend to be like that. But I don't think it means they have to be like that, and I don't think it means they can't be shown that isn't really the best way to be.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions for you. We need to maybe talk about the how of InReach, and maybe attach to that question the idea about, are we any good at it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the how. I think it's like you kind of I think it's really important to kind of approach people as kind of allies rather than that they're in any way a kind of enemy. I mean, these are people that, you know, obviously they become vegan or they regard themselves as vegan, and you know, so my first question would be like, you know, oh, well, why are you vegan? And obviously if they say it's for health, then I think then there's another type of conversation.
Well, I wasn't thinking about it in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
I wrote down a couple of examples that I've seen. I mean, obviously you get a lot of people who either seem to allude to or actually blatantly suggest that veganism is a diet, but then you'll get other people saying that things like, you know, the vegan movement was started by Gary Yourofsky, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so if the idea is to InReach to those people, what kind of language can we use?
I'd say, well, how do you? Yeah. Well, if say someone did think it was started by Gary Yourofsky, I'd say, well, you know, are you aware?
Don't laugh. There's quite a few people who
say,
yes,
yes, I'm sure there are. In fact, I know there are. I think just to say, well, look, you know, do you know the history of the vegan movement? Do you know when veganism actually started? and just talk to them about that, because if they think veganism was started by Gary Yourofsky, they're obviously not aware of the history. And so you kind of have to explain that to them, and and kind of go down that road.
I've found, and I'm not ruling out the fact that it was just me that didn't do this very well, but I've done that. In fact, I came to those kind of conversations with the expectation that if I said to people, well, welcome to the movement and everything, do you know about the history of it? You'll be amazed about the radicalism and all that. I've actually got completely stonewalled on that, and they kind of almost like, go away, we're not interested. Almost as though you're humiliating them for not knowing the history, which you're not doing. No. So you're just pointing out that there's a history that they don't know about. I mean, most of them are too young to know about it. But one major response, to me at least, is that a lot of people are just totally not interested because they can't see the relevance of it.
Well, I think that kind of discussion can be had about that. If they say, well, I don't understand that, why that's relevant, then the discussion can be had about that. Why don't they consider it relevant?
Well, I think it sometimes it's because it contradicts the construction of the situation as they've come to understand it. For example, I had a conversation with someone who was talking about Donald Watson's 1944 definition of veganism, which doesn't exist. They were actually talking about the 1979 to 88 one, but they were attributing to Donald Watson, which is very common. And also, when it got on to things that Reagan had said, I was just told that I was talking BS when I was quoting Reagan, because it didn't fit their worldview.
No. And, there may be some people that are so entrenched in their positions that it can't, that kind of whatever you said. But you see, there's also another way of doing it. It's like, if you say to someone like, well, why are you, if you're talking about people that are vegan because they care about what's happening to other animals, what humans are doing to other animals, if that's the, and I think the majority of vegans fall into that category. The majority of people who consider themselves vegans fall into that category. Then I think that once that's established with someone, you can kind of go further with that, because someone may feel that, but they may not be aware of the extent to which animals are oppressed by, or other animals oppressed by humans. And so you can say, well, look, why are you, what is the reason that you don't eat animal products? So because I don't like the fact that these animals are reared and slaughtered, and it doesn't need to happen. And so what you can do is then extend that to other areas where animals are oppressed, and say, well, what about that? That other area, animals are exploited or oppressed in that other area, and there's kind of, in a sense, really no difference with what between that and what you're already opposed to.
Doesn't that sound like you're debating them at that stage, Ronnie?
No, it depends. I think it depends how you say it to them, because this is where you'd be involved in a person. If someone says to me like, oh, veganism, it's nothing to do with the environment. You see, I mean, my position is that that you can't be vegan for the environment, but you should be an environmentalist for veganism.
Well, there's a comment about that, and given the fact that we said that we won't charge people, but so we will put some up. First of all, I know what Colleen is saying here, that it's me that's dry and academic. I know what's being said, but so Elliot is saying, Ronnie Lee, veganism is good for the environment is a weird statement to me. Exploiting non-human animals might be good for the environment in certain contexts.
No,
hang on. There's a caveat, which is, but animal liberationists should obviously be environmental.
Yeah, I mean, how it's how it's a benefit to the environment is is kind of what I've said already in terms of if we put an end to animal farming and indeed the fishing industry, that would be hugely beneficial in terms of combating the climate crisis, which is probably and also the ecological crisis as well. So that would be of huge benefit, to the natural world if we were to do that. And that's where the dietary aspect of veganism, shall we say, is that not veganism itself, but the dietary aspect of it, like, because vegans don't consume animal products, that therefore means that those industries would come to an end, and with the benefits to the environment that would ensue. But when I'm saying that you can't be that, but veganism isn't about, veganism is a justice philosophy. It's an animal liberationist philosophy. So so although we've got this kind of knock-on effect of somebody adopting a vegan diet in terms of that being beneficial to the environment.
So what you say? Are you saying that the environment doesn't benefit from a sense of justice?
Well, where the environment benefits from a sense of justice is where I say that that vegans should be environmentalists. In other words, because other animals are harmed by adverse human impact on the natural world, it's part of the vegan ethic for us to do our best to avoid being part of that, and to combat harm to the natural environment, because that's all part of the way in which humans oppress other animals. So that comes within environmentalism comes within in the ambit of veganism. So in other words, although you can't be vegan for the environment, I think you've got to be an environmentalist for veganism.
Isn't that semantics? Because that means that you're a vegan for the environment.
No, because somebody could say the reason the reason I don't consume animal products is because of the contribution that animal farming and the fishing industry make to the climate crisis, and that's why, and that could be like without any.
But if you care about habitat, Ronnie,
but you see that the thing is that could be a totally human centric thing. That could be totally because I'm concerned about the fact that our species may be wiped out, through
being concerned about habitat.
Yeah, but you see but the thing is that somebody can be. You kind of have these a lot of environmental organisations that are like very much human centric. That the reason they want to protect the natural world is because of the benefits to humans of that.
Yeah, but vegans won't be in that boat, though, will they? So
well, no. But somebody who considers that that veganism is just
but somebody who's vegan for the environment, Ronnie, is obviously coming at it from a vegan point of view.
No, somebody who thinks that veganism is just a diet, right? And that the reason they've adopted that diet is to protect the environment for the benefit of humans. Right. What I'm saying is that's not
that wouldn't be a vegan thing.
They're not vegan. That'd
be a plant-based environmentalist. Right?
They wouldn't be a vegan, but they may think they're a vegan.
No, it's not relevant.
They might consider that vegan. If someone considers that veganism, is just a diet, they could adopt that diet.
Well, we need some InReach to put them right on.
Yeah, they could adopt that diet for reasons other than
You're being encouraged to kind of give a bit of a summary about InReach in a minute. But first of all, Fatima says that history is seen as nerdy, unfortunately. So that's another problem to InReach, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties is kind of like a technological thing in that, like, a lot of the stuff that's, I mean, that's starting to change now. There's a lot of stuff going up. And I know, like, you've done a lot of work on this, and Andy has as well, in the sense of putting stuff on YouTube, for instance, regarding, you know, what the founders of the vegan movement said and what they intended. And I think one of the problems is that you know, that really for a long time could only be found in books and in printed material, whereas you've got people these days that look for their information largely to social media and to videos. And because a lot of that stuff didn't appear in that format, those kind of newer vegans didn't know about it. It wasn't something that they you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if by bringing the history into the modern way of communication, that's the obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean that's the idea. In fact, it's a biggie this coming Thursday, people, because it's Leslie Cross we're dealing with now. Cliff has asked you to give a quick recap of what do you actually mean by inReach.
Well, I mean, what I mean by inReach is just that, you know, there's a lot of people who consider themselves vegan, who don't fully grasp the scope of veganism. I'll give you a bit, like, really simple example, and I've said it loads of times, that kind of, I've seen people on social media, and, you know, someone who, you know, says they're vegan, you know, maybe a member of, you know, vegan groups on Facebook, etc., and it's their birthday, and, you know, you can do fundraisers on your birthday for, you know, for charities, can't you? You can, for my birthday, I'm collecting funds for so and so charity. And I've seen those people put things up on their Facebook saying, for my birthday, I'm collecting funds for Cancer Research UK or the British Heart Foundation, something like that. And these are charities that fund experiments on animals. So it wouldn't be consistent with the vegan ethic to be promoting those charities. And yet those people do, because they're unaware that those charities do that. They might be totally unaware of the whole area of animal experimentation, because there's so much emphasis these days on, you know, on diet in relation to veganism, that those people might not even know very much at all about animal experimentation. And so when I see something like that, I'll put a comment saying, were you aware that this charity funds experiments on animals? You know, and so that's a form of inReach, to say to that person, because that person obviously wasn't aware of that, because, you know, as a vegan, you know, if they're true to vegan principles, they wouldn't be promoting that, would they? You see, so that's just, you know, that's just like a small example of that, and it's also to, you know, do with other things that people do. You know, there's all sorts of ways in our everyday life that we kind of contribute to stuff that oppresses or exploits other animals that we might not be aware of. You know, somebody might be investing with a particular bank that in turn invests very heavily in animal agriculture, for instance, and so that person could be educated about that, and then maybe encouraged to, you know, to move their money to a more ethical bank instead. It's all these things. That's what I'm saying, where people genuinely aren't aware of stuff. No, I mean, there's probably stuff I'm not aware of that if someone, you know, told me about it, I wouldn't be angry with them. I'd be grateful that they told me, to be honest.
I seem to remember it used to be a bit tighter on that. I mean, like for everybody used to know about banks. I mean, everybody boycotted Barclays Bank because of apartheid. Everybody in the movement was really kind of banking with the Co-op Bank. This is Britain, of course. You know, and everybody was boycotting Unilever because of the vivisection. Everybody was boycotting Nestle for a variety of reasons, and it was very well. It was uncommon not to find somebody who didn't know all of that.
I think one of the reasons, I think the kind of animal experimentation and knowledge about that and campaigning against that used to be much more prominent in the movement. So people knew a lot more about it and who was involved in it. A lot of vegans these days wouldn't know about Unilever and their involvement in animal experimentation, and they'll happily buy products that that are certified as suitable for vegans in the sense they don't contain animal products, but are produced by companies like Unilever. I mean, it's difficult. It's a difficult one because,
well, again, the other example I gave was Nestle, but I mean, a lot of modern day vegans would probably respond that's got nothing to do with veganism.
Well, it depends on it depends on what someone's understanding of the definition of veganism is, really, doesn't it? In that sense, but yes, I mean, yeah, Nestle, Unilever, there's all these companies. I mean, it's difficult because, for instance, it's very hard to find a commercially produced plant milk that isn't connected to the dairy industry. Like I think almost all plant milks, or perhaps all of them, that are sold in supermarkets these days, they're either directly produced by dairy companies or they're produced by a company that's a subsidiary of a dairy company. So it's kind of really hard.
It's interesting the way that's all worked out, isn't it? Because I mean, maybe what we need, really, fun enough, is to start doing some inreach about plamil. The chances are there's going to be a lot of modern day vegans who don't know what plamil is.
No, and it's whether it's also the availability of it, because it's not something that's widely available in supermarkets or anything like that. And
no, but we need to create a demand, don't we?
Would they be able to supply that demand? If that demand was created.
Haven't seen plamil for years. Have you seen plamil for years? I mean, where would you go to get it? Is it online?
I don't know I honestly don't know where I'd go to get. I mean, ideally, what I'd like to do, and
but we should though, Ronnie, because of the point you just made, the fact that
I think that, yes, I think if we can obtain stuff like that, it's just that kind of, it's in a sense ease of availability to people, and it's whether they've got the capacity to supply everywhere where people get it from. I think it's just that, like, that practical consideration with it. I mean, ideally, what I'd like to do, my kind of home circumstances were different, is make my own plant milk from oats, and that's quite easy to do. I've got a friend who does it just in a few minutes. Makes this lovely plant milk from oats.
Well, yeah, but again, you see, we've got a lot. It's interesting, again, isn't it, that you've got I would suggest that might be a bit of a generational divide, but not entirely. But the idea that veganism is about convenience and having a vegan version of everything and all that, and so the idea of having to make the vegan version yourself seems a bit of a throwback.
I think this is another aspect of InReach, because you see, it's kind of about it's really about trying to be as ethical as we can, in terms of kind of contributing as little as we can to the oppression and exploitation of others, isn't it? And so and we need to be kind of sort of like mindful of that, that because it's all about choice, because when we say go into a shop or a supermarket and we choose the plant milk instead of the dairy milk, we're making an ethical choice. We're saying, well, I'm going to choose that product because no animals have been exploited to produce that product, whereas the other one they have been, and so I'm going to choose the more ethical product. And I think we should always have that in our mind as best we can. Not that we can kind of we spend ages and ages doing it and go around with some kind of calculator or something, but we should always be trying to make the most ethical choice. It's like, for instance, this whole kind of debate about McDonald's, and is it okay for vegans to go into McDonald's and eat the plants, or go into one of these other burger chains and eat their kind of plant-based version of the meat burger that they produce, and people say, oh well, that's no different to going in a supermarket and kind of buying stuff from a supermarket, because they sell loads of animal products as well. And I'd say, well, yeah, in a sense it isn't different, but in another sense it is different because it's to do with kind of availability and our ability to make the most ethical choice. And so, you know, with supermarkets, it's quite often difficult to get stuff other than in the supermarket in practical terms. With eating places, there's loads of choice. You know, you don't have to eat in McDonald's. There's loads of choices. There are loads of other eating places that aren't as unethical as McDonald's. And I think that kind of we're sort of morally bound really to kind of, you know.
Some of the most prominent influencers have suggested that we should support McDonald's in order to get that product out in front.
But you see what happens if you've got like maybe a family-run cafe around the corner, or perhaps a vegan cafe that where you could eat instead of at McDonald's. And so if you support McDonald's instead of supporting that place, then you're withdrawing custom from that
I
place.
get that bit of it, Ronnie, but you're not going to be able to go to the McDonald's customers and go, hey, do you want to come around the corner instead?
No, you're not going to be able to go to the McDonald's customers, but you see it's a kind of progression, isn't it? Because what happens is there's people going in McDonald's anyway, and they're eating the beef burger or whatever's in there, right? And then when they learn about veganism, they're still going in McDonald's, but then they swap that for the plant, for the one that's suitable for vegans, right? So those are the people really that's kind of aimed at. But
those are the people then who you want to go around the corner then, right?
Yeah, that's right. But then this is where we come to InReach, isn't it? To say to those people, yeah, it's great that you become vegan, and yeah, it's great you're eating the plant instead of eating the beef burger, but there is an even more ethical option than that, and that is not to go to McDonald's and to go somewhere that's like more ethical or less unethical than McDonald's. So it's like a progression, isn't it? It's a progression along this moral trajectory, really, this ethical trajectory, and I think InReach is about taking people further along that road.
Okay, well, we've got a few things in the chat to catch up on. Got something from Cliff, a little bit of breaking news from Joanna. I didn't know the J stood for John. I thought it was something else, but apparently he's officially arrested in court. So that's a bit of news.
Is he being tried as an adult though?
I don't know.
I suppose he could plead insanity, couldn't he? Really,
he'll be throwing his dummy out no matter what.
Open to him to plead insanity, he probably would get away with that.
Okay, before I come on to Cliff, and then there's something from Drummer as well, just on the McDonald's thing, and about this progression that you said, which I kind of quite like what you just said there. Yeah, that, people go vegan, they might go there because of the McPlant thing. Yeah, but then eventually they'll be going around the corner. Now, do you think it's a good idea for vegans to kind of do a little demo, not a demo, that's the wrong thing, but do a little presence outside McDonald's, kind of suggesting to people as they go in that they try the McPlant and to report back on it when they come out? I totally support that, because what you're doing, you're helping people in that progression. You've got people that are going in there that are going to go and eat the beef burger or whatever, or the chicken burger or what they eat, and if you're encouraging those people to eat the McPlant instead, then you are moving. It rankles with me, Ronnie, because I wouldn't give McShite.
But I'm saying that I can see that kind of, because what you're doing is you're encouraging someone to take a step along that ethical journey. Aren't you?
That's right, and also it gets them to think about ethical issues, because what they tend to do, and it's particularly prevalent on TikTok, is they'll say things. It happened to me, I think, yesterday or the day before, where it might have been the day before, basically saying, oh, you vegans, you want things to, to taste like meat. And so I ended up talking to this guy who said that the McPlant wasn't very good. And I said, well, what prompted you to try it? And then he made up this story that, oh, I was given it by mistake. And I said, and all this. So he was trying to It's just that people often say, "Oh, that's rubbish, right? That's crap," and you go, "Okay, when did you try it?" And of course, they haven't.
No, no, and you bet if they'd been given that and not told it was suitable for vegans, they'd probably think it was okay, wouldn't they? And it's only when you tell them that they suddenly decide that
Yeah,
it's crap.
well, you've kind of blown that by the fact that they've got to go and ask for the plant. So I mean, you can't have that kind of.
Oh, you can't do that in McDonald's,
Yeah,
but I mean,
know.
I've known that happen in in other
Yeah,
circumstances.
it's happened a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
even down to, I mean, Jennifer always says on her lives that there's people from the industry who can't tell the vegan product or the plant-based product, vegan-friendly product from the flesh, and so
no, I'm quite sure that's true. And then there was that expert, wasn't there, on
the sausage guy,
the sausage expert that thought the vegan sausage was wonderful.
The sausage butty king,
and then changed his mind when he was told it was the one that was suitable for vegans. Yeah, yeah. So there we are. That's kind of what
let's move on to what Cliff was saying here. I saw a vegan recently raising money for guide dogs to the blind. This was said when you were talking about the British Heart Foundation. I messaged the person to point out the issue, and I got called ableist for my trouble. So that could that be a communication issue? Would they respond that way no matter what you said? You see, what would the opening gambit on that be, Ronnie?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, you've got to kind of be diplomatic in a situation like this, but still challenge the fact that that dog's being used for human purposes, and that's and ethically that's not right. So I would say, I'd say, do you think it's right that that dogs should be used as like in that way by humans, or used at all by humans, and then see what they say and then take it on from there? Because there's a whole history in this.
You're talking to another vegan here.
Yeah.
So,
because you're talking to a vegan, so that person, you'd say, well, look, as a vegan, you are opposed to all exploitation of other animals, aren't you, by humans? And isn't guide dogs for the blind a form of exploitation? All right, it might not be the most horrendous form of exploitation in the world, but nevertheless, it is a form of exploitation.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how that kind of panned out, really, in the sense that you can imagine that a lot of people would.
But you know what? There's vegans that ride horses, isn't there? People who call themselves vegans that ride horses.
Well, I'm glad you did that caveat in the end. The people who call themselves vegans,
because you see, they don't see that is kind of exploitation when it kind of it is. I mean, particularly if the horse isn't a rescued horse, but one that they've paid a horse breeder to have, you know what I mean, or they're going to a horse riding school and giving money to the riding school to be able to ride.
I remember having this conversation with somebody who was talking about the fact is that the horses need exercise, and so my response was, well, why don't you go down the beach with them in the same way as you go down with your dog, and let them off, because they were talking about this kind of really close relationship they had with this animal. They were like brothers and sisters and all that. But oh no, we couldn't let them off because they'll run away. And I said, well, why would they run away from their human friend? I mean, dogs don't run away, right? And so
no, I mean, I don't know how how that worked. I mean, I was at an animal sanctuary 2 or 3 weeks ago that got horses, and they were kind of running around in the field. And there was no humans on their backs. I mean, they're capable of like running around and getting exercise without humans on their backs. So I kind of don't really, I don't really know where that comes in, that they have to be.
Well, I think it's to do with the fact that it's the idea of letting them really kind of let rip and gallop and stuff, and they're frightened of them running away.
Yeah, I think in circumstances where they haven't got that, I mean, that they were all in the big field, these horses, and because horses should be in a big group. That's how they are in their natural situation. They're in a great big herd, aren't they? Galloping across the plains. That's how they are in nature.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So they're meant to be in a group of lots of horses. They're not meant to be on their own. It's the same with dogs, really. Dogs are a pack animal, aren't they? They kind of, they need the company of other dogs, really. Although people say, well, they treat the humans as
the leader of the pack.
Yeah.
Going back to plough mill, apparently Amazon sells it now. That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just the practicality of it'd be brilliant if there was a totally vegan produced, a plant milk produced by a vegan company that could be widespread, that became, it became available everywhere. You see, one danger of these things, though, is that it's like if you look at the vegan cheese. Well, what I said about the plant milks is is also echoed with the vegan cheese, or cheese that's suitable, stuff that's called vegan cheese. Because I don't think there's a company now that produces that, unless if you get the artisan stuff that you can kind of send away for and stuff, that's kind of, that can, very often is like vegan, produced by a small vegan business or perhaps an individual person. But the stuff that's sort of widely available in supermarkets, I don't think any of that now is produced by a vegan company. I mean, the stuff that like Bute Island Foods up in Scotland is kind of, they were a vegan run company, or I think kind of there was a little bit of question mark over whether all the ones that ran it were vegan, but it was very much that way. That ran Bute Island Foods for years and years and years. It's what they were like one of the kind of original vegan cheeses that you could buy in health food shops, and then they got into supermarkets. They started producing a lot of the supermarkets' own brand cheese, and then they got bought out by a huge Canadian dairy company. You see, because
well, it was a problem for us because we were getting samples, first of all, of Violife, and that happened to them, and then secondly of Follow Your Heart, and I think that happened to them.
Yeah, because what's happening is these dairy companies are looking to diversify. They're thinking, shit, people are kind of starting to eat more, sort of plant-based products. More people are going vegan.
I mean, this is your kind of little vegan thing around the corner from McDonald's, but in bigger, because this is capitalism, right? Seeing a market and wanting to get their share of it while it's there.
Yeah,
but them getting their share of it might destroy that market, but they don't care about that.
Well, it's kind of easier for them to buy out the existing vegan business than to start producing.
Let them do all the groundwork and all the hard work.
They just do it because the company that bought out, I can't remember the name of it. It's a Canadian dairy company that bought out Bute Island Foods. Is the same company that produces Cathedral City. And they now produce like a version of Cathedral City that's suitable for vegans, and that's made on Bute Island by Bute Island Foods. That's where that all comes from.
All right. Maybe Colleen might know this Canadian.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact name of it. Does it begin with S?
What's your recipe? Somebody's asking. Well, Graham's asking. This is for the
what's that for the oat milk?
Yeah.
I think I don't make it because it's just because of my family circumstances. It'd be difficult to do it.
Okay, what's the recipe then?
The recipe, I think you just look online. Because I haven't got a recipe because I'm not in a position, unfortunately, to be able to do it. But I think I know my friend who made it did it. It was really, really simple. It was just basically oats and water and a kind of blender and different things. I think she poured it through some kind of filter or something like that. But there'd be recipes online. Just look online, homemade oat milk, and there's probably a number of recipes for it. I think there's some way you kind of put a bit of oil in it and stuff. There's different ways of doing it, and you'd probably find the one that suited you best. So yeah, it'd be online.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, Fatima said, shouldn't what's best for the other animals guide all our tactics? Well, yeah, it's just that we can't get consensus on it.
Yeah, yeah, that should be, what guides what we,
I mean, presumably, this reflexivity or this conversation, this communication that should go on within our movement is hampered by the fact that we don't seem to be very good at it. But then again, I don't know whether there's anybody any good at it in the social media space.
I think what happens is we kind of get, in a sense, like trapped in our own bubble, trapped in our own little world, and as if that's all there is. And so if someone, if there's kind of disagreement, between people within that world, within the kind of what we might call the vegan world, it can get really nasty, because people don't think that that's kind of that the people who are the real problems are the people outside of that, the people that still oppress animals, the people that still consume animal products, and it's like done without it's people forget that those are the real enemy. And they're kind of like, because you'll get people that agree on like 95% of things, 99% of things within the vegan community, and they'll fight over the 5% or even the 1% where they disagree, and like be really horrible to each other over that little 1% where they disagree. Whereas, who we should be fighting, where we should be campaigning, is in that world that's occupied by all the people that support the continued exploitation and oppression of other animals. You kind of forget you're in this enclosed community, and you like forget that what the true situation of the world is. And so we've always got to be mindful of that and thinking, well, don't stop treating like our other other vegans, or even people claim to be vegan. If you think, oh yeah, you're not vegan because like I don't agree with that or that thing you did or whatever, but like stop treating those people as enemies. Don't approach them as enemies.
I think the true situation of the world begins with F and ends with something.
Well, we've got to try and un-F it, haven't we? This is all part of what this is all about, and I think that's the thing that we, like kind of, and I think it's like far better to work together on those areas where we agree, the huge areas we agree on. It's far better to work together on that than to fight over the small areas where you disagree, particularly if that kind of fighting gets really nasty, which it does.
Well, as you know, easier said than done. I don't think I've done this for a few weeks really. This is Andy's petition. To find out from the smartphone manufacturers what animal products or products derived from other animals are in the devices. Because ever since this petition went up, because it used to be almost like a daily thing, you get a deluge of people on TikTok in particular talking about what's in your phones. There's a cow in your phone and all that. And since this petition went up, that's all kind of gone. I mean, I don't think I've seen that claim for about.
I've got a little man in my phone actually. He tells me off if I swear. He tells me off, like he goes, "That's not nice," and don't use that sort of language. It's like very prude. That person in the phone is like really prude, aren't they? I've noticed.
Well, it's a good job you didn't program it, isn't it?
So, yeah. I wonder if you can get a program of like where it swears, and you could have a real good like swearing thing with it.
Well, you can with those sat navs, can't you? You can get like.
Oh yeah, you can get ones that are really rude.
Yeah, you can get sat navs in the kind of voice of Homer Simpson. I was in a car once with the Homer Simpson sat nav, but after about 7 minutes, it was incredibly boring. Because it was just going dope and all this shit, and it was just ridiculous.
Ones that swear at you when you miss the turning and that might be quite interesting, but that would get boring as well, wouldn't it, if they did it all the time? But yeah, I think yeah, I think it's, but the other thing about smartphones, it's not just it's not just whether or not there's animal products in them. It's like, you know, the production of these devices cause harm to other animals in other ways, you know, through the mining process, you know, the destruction of natural habitat that's connected with that, and all that, you know. So we have to kind of take that into consideration as well. And I think, you know, really in terms of, you know, something like a smartphone, I think we have to, yeah, you know, they were important. I mean, you know, both of us are using computers, you know, for this, you know, tonight. I think we'd like to think that, you know,
Yeah,
overall,
mine's a rock one made
yours a
made
rock,
by
computer, like
Flintstones.
you're, and you've done a really
I'm
good.
kind of peddling underneath.
You've done a really good drawing of your face on there. It looks really realistic on there, like I have on my rock computer. But yes, yeah, so obviously, you know, there's technology and this, you know, there's stuff gone into that. But we'd like to think, yeah, we know that. But like overall, you know, you know, there's a beneficial effect of like what we're doing, you know, and that's kind of how you sort of justify it, isn't it? And I think it's the same with smartphones. I think if you're campaigning for veganism, then, you know, a smartphone is kind of really essential. But I think we still need to be mindful of, you know, of kind of our impact in terms of that. Like, for instance, I'll never buy a new one. I'll never buy a new one. Whenever I need another smartphone, I'll always get a secondhand one or a reconditioned one or something like that. So I'm not creating as much demand.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a new one.
No, you don't need to.
Ronnie, you're being inreached by Graham. You say something about the greater good. Said enslaving an individual to serve another for the greater good. Singer vibes.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't agree with enslaving. I don't believe in enslaving other animals.
Well, I might be reading that wrong. It's just that sometimes you try and match up the comment to something that was said 20 minutes ago. So
no, I think that's probably to do with the guide dogs for the blind, which I fundamentally don't agree with that. I don't think dogs. I don't think dogs should have been used by humans at all. I mean, the history of like the kind of oppression and enslavement of dogs by humans goes back, because all dogs, even the smallest little Chihuahua, little Pekingese, or any of them, they all come from wolves. They're all descended from wolves. It's where humans took wolves and selectively bred them for the purpose of oppressing other animals. Because originally, all these different breeds of dogs, they were either bred for hunting or herding, or perhaps retrieving, all in connection with the human oppression and exploitation of other animals. And it's only in really quite recent times that they've become more, you know, used as what could be called companion animals, referred to as companion animals. And you've got all the kind of, you know, things like crufts, where you've got the different breeds and, you know, the show dogs, and you've got all that kind of thing. That's in the history of like the oppression of dogs by humans. That's quite recent. You know, what they originally, like all of them were selectively bred by humans to like, you know, to help in the oppression, exploitation of other animals. And yes, and they're now largely exploited in a different way, but it's still not right. You know.
Well, we're an hour and a quarter in. We were saying that this is going to be a short one, and Ronnie said,
we're not capable of doing short
Ronnie
ones.
says I wouldn't bank on that.
But what I'm saying, you know, I mean, basically what I'm saying is like outreach. Like, you know, we all agree outreach is really important. We need to educate as many people as possible to go vegan. And I think another part of InReach is like is encouraging vegans to be active. You know, that's part of InReach, to say to people, well, look, you know, why are you vegan? You know, because you're opposed to the oppression, exploitation of other animals. You don't like what's going on, but it's not going to stop, is it? While all these other people aren't vegan. So really, if you kind of really care, you really want what you desire by becoming vegan, then the answer to that is to go out, educate other people to be vegan. Otherwise, that's not going to happen. So that's part of InReach as well. Encouraging vegans to be activists is InReach. It's encouraging them to go further along the road, really. Encouraging them to kind of,
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing which is really interesting. I thought I'd bring this up in relation because I thought you might get around to this eventually, Ronnie. So there was on another live stream, the host was asking the guest, well, how could we improve, vegan outreach, or how can we improve the situation vis-a-vis veganism? And the guy was going through, there's been this film and that film, and there's been this development and that development, and there's been this growth in consumerisms, and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting to me because the one thing that he didn't touch on, because he said that he thought that the vegan outreach was doing really good in terms of what it was doing. But he didn't seem to be tuned into the idea that there just wasn't enough of it, and it wasn't necessarily always in the right place. And this idea of all the time and everywhere.
Yeah,
he hadn't kind of thought of that when it came to how can we improve vegan education, and that part of it, which is your main thing.
Yeah,
he didn't even.
Well, it's really what I call community vegan outreach. In other words, people outreach in their own local communities, because most kinds of physical outreach, in the street, tends to happen in the centre of big cities, really wherever it is in the world. But in kind of more localized communities, there kind of isn't any like there's like in smaller towns and even suburbs of cities, where people live, where you have shopping centres and all that. You've got, all sorts of different forms of outreach could take place in those places, but by and large it doesn't. So there's this huge untapped area, really, where outreach could take place, but where it isn't taking place. And it's a question of how do we kind of mobilise more vegans? How do you mobilise vegans to do outreach within their local community? Because it can be very, very
going
simple.
back to the InReach, it was interesting to me that when the actual subject was how can we improve vegan outreach, that wasn't seen as the obvious thing to do, which is increase the amount of it.
Yeah, that's right, and I think it's just a message that kind of needs to be repeated, that like people, and it does mean that like people who currently are just vegan activists and will go into the centre of a big city to join other activists and doing an event in a Cuba Truth or, other events that take place in the centre of big cities, to think, well, okay, but like, how can I kind of, step up one and actually become an organizer and an instigator of outreach in my own area where I live, and maybe, mobilise some of the local vegans in my own area who are currently inactive, get them to help me, get them involved locally. There's a lot of people prefer to stay local and prefer just to do local stuff. And so there's this really untapped, resource, I think, of vegans who aren't active, but would become active if they were presented with the type of activism that kind of more appeals to them, which is more localized.
We'll have to
and that's once again, that's InReach, that's educating, encouraging vegans to become activists. That's another form of InReach as well.
Well, speaking of InReach, this is InReach to me in the sense that I'm not quite sure if I knew about deaf guide dog, sort of blind guide dog. You heard of that before?
Hearing dogs for the deaf. You've got guide dogs for the blind. You've got hearing dogs for the deaf. You've got assistance dogs for people with disabilities. You've got all categories where they're, because it just used to be the guide dogs for blind, but then I think they're kind of starting to use them in these other categories as well.
Well, I've never heard of this before.
I mean, where the practical solution to this will come is with kind of artificial intelligence, won't it? Although that doesn't mean that,
everybody gets their own data from Star Trek.
Well, everyone would get there'd be some kind of robot or something that would kind of be developed to kind of to help people in those situations, because I kind of can understand it, although I don't agree with the concept of dogs being used at all in these situations. I kind of understand someone not wanting another human around, helping them. I can understand somebody.
Well,
wanting
yeah,
to
but
be
it's
independent.
not any dog's fault that they've got a
It's
physical.
not the dog's fault. No, it's not the
No.
dog's fault. So that isn't an excuse or a reason to use these dogs. No, they shouldn't be used. That's an infringement of their rights, and it's not justifiable. But in practical terms, I think maybe what will happen is that you see, and of course the thing is, while we've got this reliance on on guide dogs and hearing dogs for deaf and all that, while there's reliance on them, then I think that holds back any efforts to develop other forms by which those people could be helped. Because I think, oh well, we can use a dog for that. We don't need to kind of. It's a bit like if all of a sudden all animal experiments were ended, you'd very, very quickly get all loads of other methods spring up, because necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's that's always been suggested from the scientific anti-vivisectionists, in the sense that vivisection is actually holding science back.
Yes.
And
I
think that,
although I'm wary of the scientific argument in terms of vivisection, because
but that particular part of it is
that particular part of it. No, I think
true,
that's absolutely true. I think if we just abolished overnight, you'd soon see all these kind of non-animal methods.
One thing that got in the way, Hans Royce made this point in Slaughter the Innocent, is that any chump can sling a rat into a gas chamber and then monitor the results, whereas if you've got to use computers and sophisticated kind of machinery and stuff, then it might be a different thing. So there might be kind of internal problems, in the sense that no industry likes to have to retrain. There's always that resistance. Just sociologically, we know that.
Yeah. I think that's the case, and I think there's also, a lot of money in it. There's a lot of people making a lot of money out of the whole, animal experimentation business, and of course, they've got mates in the governments. We've got a government that's not really interested in science when it gets in the way of money making, and gets in the way of what their supporters want. A prime example of that is we've got the badger cull, which is totally unscientific. There's no scientific basis for it, and yet that's continued because basically there's a lot of farmers want to kill badgers, and a lot of people want badgers cleared from land so they can build on that land. That's what happens. It's not that they'll ignore science when they've got other priorities, and I think that's very much the case. They'll
ignore morals anyway.
They'll ignore morals. Yeah, absolutely. And I think and they will ignore science as well when that doesn't suit their other desires, so to speak.
Right, Ronnie. So I think we've probably exhausted this particular theme.
Yes.
Of things. So it's been an interesting one. I'm not convinced that we have kind of come up with how best to.
I think kind of how you do it is like, it's just in general. Of course, as vegans, we'll kind of all the time come across other vegans, won't we? And we'll become involved in conversation with them, and I think that's one way of doing it, in a kind of in a friendly way, pointing out things to people, and also I think in if we're making speeches in public, these things can be pointed out. I'd say the major thing that's ignored by vegans is really the environmental aspect. You've got a lot of people who are vegan or consider themselves vegan that will continue to do things that are like really, really harmful to the environment, and without realizing or without wanting to realize the harm that does to the natural world and the other animals that inhabit it. And I think that's probably the major area where the kind of inreach needs to be done. That area, and also in terms of encouraging vegans to become activists, to become outreachers. I think those
Actually,
are probably
I mean, Graham said this a couple of times. The fact that, you know, this idea of kind of talking about yourself and the way that you did it, you know, it kind of creates a rapport. And it also doesn't kind of, well, you know, I you know, you're the ignorant one, I'm the, you know, it's not, you know, it breaks down that kind of barrier, isn't it?
I think that's right. I mean, you know, I do that with outreach as well, because I mean, I used to be the probably worst meat eater in the world. So I you know, I'll talk about myself and, you know, what happened to me and why I stopped doing that. You know, when I do outreach, I'll talk to people like that. You know, like, if I can, it's more or less, if I can do it, so can you, type of thing. I don't kind of actually say that to them, but that's the sort of message, really.
Yeah. If I can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah.
Right, people. I'm determined to get this done before we're 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So thanks very much for people tuning in. Thanks, Ronnie, for your wise words as per usual. And one last question is: do you remember when I told you my chiropractor joke?
No, that's too. Well, it's short-term memory that goes first, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's probably told me that too recent for me to remember it. Yeah.
Well, we shall be back, and we shall be back next week, all being well, providing, of course, Ronnie, that
we are both still alive.